Hey fam, what up? Welcome back. It has been a while. I've been on sort of like a self-imposed summer break for a couple weeks, but I'm back and I've missed you guys. Tonight we are getting Arkansas. I've been waiting all day to say that. Welcome to the show, congressional candidate for Arkansas. I've never been. I realized I was like, I'm going to bring out everything I know about Arkansas, which is absolutely nothing. So I'm here to learn. Welcome, Chase McDowell, to the show. What's up, dude?
Well, thanks for having us, or thanks for having me. That's a shame you've not been to Arkansas. I'm a little biased, but I think we're the prettiest state in the republic. I've been to all of them but Hawaii, so Hawaii might beat us out. But I definitely think Arkansas is one of the most beautiful states in the republic for sure.
Damn, you've been to 49 out of 50 states?
I have. I just got to get Hawaii off the bucket list. The
Yeah,
last
that's
election,
like the one I want to go to.
yeah, well, Alaska, excuse me, Hawaii is the last one I haven't been to. The election kind of threw a wrench in that. So I had a bucket list that I wanted to go to all of them by 30. I didn't make it there, but I've definitely got to go to Hawaii.
Is it work that's brought you there or just for the hell of
Well,
it?
I've worked in 49 states. Yeah. Well, Alaska, yes and no. I mean, I kind of have my own little social media thing, so I kind of count that as work. But no, I've worked in 48 and 49. I just kind of Alaska was a fun little cruise that I did. I recommend that for everybody. It doesn't matter how old you are, young, whatnot. Alaska's it's pretty. It's
Is
definitely.
it? I just hate the cold, so I kind of avoid Alaska like the plague.
Well, in the summer it's not too bad, but definitely I think there were still some times that it was in the 50s. So you got to carry a light jacket or whatnot. But I enjoyed it. But man, you can't get away from mosquitoes anywhere. I thought that going to Alaska, I wouldn't have to worry about mosquitoes, but I think they're worse than they are in Arkansas. So
I
that's
love it. I'm in Florida, so I'm like, give me all the mosquitoes.
yeah, yeah.
Before we get into stuff, just want to say hello to our beautiful chat friends. I've missed you guys. Thanks for being here. Duke, Saw, Christy, Courtney, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. So Chase, what is your origin story? I need to know what would possess a person to see politics and be like, yeah, I want to be part of that because it seems horrible to me.
Well, when I was a young kid, funny enough, I heard George W. Bush for the very first time when I was a kid, and he just kind of, I was like, man, I kind of like that guy. He just kind of seems kind of cool. And of course, he was our president twice. That first kind of got me involved in politics, but also my family has always owned small businesses. So I'm a third generation small business owner now. My family were farmers too, and those are definitely small businesses. But my grandfather was the first one out of the generation of folks that came to this country back in the 1700s that wasn't a farmer. So he became a mechanic, a diesel mechanic, and he owned a trucking company. And then my dad followed suit, and then I decided to work in a consultant, type realm here, to where I helped independent pharmacists and then small businesses across the country kind of navigate what Washington was doing. And from a young age, I worked with my family's businesses. So working on trucks and other things of that nature. And my grandfather paid me like he did any other employee, and I was like, "Hey, what are taxes? Why am I? Who is that? Who am I paying?" And then they set me down and he explained to me, this is how this works. And I want you to go to college, and I want you to, be better than I was. And my dad, the same sentiment, And what I started noticing as you become an adult, that's not getting any easier. It's getting harder and more complex. I'm going to be quite frank with you. I worked 2 jobs to get through college. I didn't have any student debt. I wrote a check before I got started each semester. I don't know if that's possible anymore. And that was just 10 years ago. So, I've worked with a lot of politicians across the country. I've worked on a lot of legislation when it comes down to independent pharmacy and trying to protect them from monopolies and different things of that nature. And I finally just got enough and said, you know what? I keep getting these folks elected and they're not following through. And I was like, Arkansas is one of those places where we're falling behind. No one knows my elected officials, right? And they're kind of the butt of the joke in Washington. And I think Arkansas deserves more respect because we employ the most people in the world. A lot of people don't realize that our businesses employ the most people in the world. So we need to have a lot of that leadership role. So I don't know. It's just kind of been injected in my DNA from the founding of this country, where my family fought in the Revolution, and we kind of helped find or found different state constitutions and whatnot, and migrated to Arkansas. And so I guess it's just in my blood. I really don't know how I got here, because I'm the only one in my family that's even remotely interested in this.
Nobody else has ever held office. And
No, I have an uncle on my maternal side that is a city council member down in Pearland, Texas. And of course, I've collaborated with him and talked to him and helped him get elected. And that's about it. But my father, my grandfather, they just were really hardworking men. They were just dedicated to make sure they provided for their family, and that was about the extent of it. And I don't know. To me, I saw them work so hard, and I saw the government keep taking away from them. And, I'm from a town of around 500 people, and seeing how hard NAFTA affected us at the time, I didn't know really what the issue was. But then, of course, as I got older, I understood, well, it's because our industries are going to, cheat what I consider slave labor in other countries, in these communist countries. And, you can't compete with that. So that was one thing that really, I was a supporter of the president in the very beginning, way before I think a lot of people were, when he was just hinting at announcing to run, because I knew that tariffs were something that I knew would be something that was necessary to build us back into a free market system, right? So, I already knew where my stances were. I think maybe in college I learned a little bit more, not a crazy amount more. I'm not going to lie to you, because
You're probably in the minority with that.
Yeah. Well, I already had my basis. So, a lot of people ask me, what are your hobbies? And this is unfortunately my hobby, along with, other things, but I love it. I love politics, and I love to see things work. And
Chase, that's the worst hobby ever. What happened to knitting or something?
I agree.
You're like, I'm going to be in Congress. That's my hobby.
Well, I'm a car guy. I am a car guy.
Okay,
I like to grow my own food and different things like that. But with my work, I travel all the time. So trying to pick up a hobby, I tried playing golf. I'm blind as a bat, so I can't see the ball once I hit it. So I've tried golf. I was a football player for years. I enjoyed football. People told me, "Hey, if you like football, you'll love golf." I don't know why they told me that. It's not the same. I don't know where that came to be. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of my hobby. So when you love something as much as I do on this front, I think people do, you just kind of get absorbed in it, right? And that's kind of where we're at with this. And I just want us to have the same advantages that the boomers had, and we definitely don't have that. And I'd like to get to that, where the country and America runs a lot easier and a lot smoother for the American people. And a lot of this ivory tower nonsense has got to go, right? A lot of folks, they're intimidated to either talk to my campaign or talk to me, or they expect me to come across as, I don't know, stuck up or whatnot. But I think that's the major problem, is people anticipate that the federal government and federal elected officials are supposed to be the end all and be all. And that's not really the way it's supposed to be. Y'all are the boss. I am just doing your orders, right? And I think
that really is, I think a lot of people on the left replace religion with politics. They look at politicians like religious figures. Like, do you remember in New York when they had Cuomo-sexuals?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what these people were calling themselves.
So I think there's a major difference between, what I would consider the alt-left and the alt-right, and then us that kind of fall in the middle, right? And I definitely fall in the middle, because I respect the president. Don't get me wrong. I think that he's done some great things, but him and I don't agree all the time. But I don't agree 100% of the time with my father either. So, but there are growing parts of our party. There's growing parts, of course, of the left, that if you're not 100% on board, then you are a zero, right? Well, that's not necessarily the case. I mean, I'm very, very vocal that, I think it's absolutely ridiculous in this country, definitely in 2025, that we have so many children that are molested. And there's so many problems that are happening with that, and it's growing. It's become a major problem here in Arkansas and across the world. So for us, that we ran on it, we focused on it, and trust me, I helped get him elected 3 times. So, I'm in this realm here to where I'm like, okay, yeah, it did divide the party, because I want answers to this. I want to know. So any kind of hiding away from it, or, that doesn't matter anymore. No, it's extremely important, because if we're doing this as a country and we don't feel that that's an issue or a problem, then where are we? That's not the
So you
American
mean
way.
to tell me you're not buying the story that Epstein killed himself magically at the 1 minute where the camera was off, that he magically knew, and the guards weren't there? It sounds totally plausible.
So the part that what I don't buy, I'll tell you what I don't buy from the situation is if we got rid of all because there's a lot of mental gymnastics to go along with this. If we by some chance got rid of all of the Epstein information, so the Bidens came in, they erased everything, they got rid of everything, right? That's one of the theories that everybody goes with. But they left everything with Obama. That's a hard sell for me, right? So we got to pick which way. Either we got rid of everything or we kept everything. But there's not, you can't make me believe that we've got a smoking gun here that they wouldn't have got rid of. So you got to have a little common sense. I think a lot of this goes into the whole AI nonsense too. I think that people just automatically now in this country, if you see anything online, you automatically have a sense of cynicism. I don't believe it. It's not true. It can't be true. Can't be a reality, right? And that's part of, I think that's the uniparty system. I think the uniparty system loves that. They love to feed both angles, both sides, and I just don't have time for that. I've said multiple times, I don't have time for hyperbole. I don't believe in let's make a whole big hullabaloo out of anything. I jokingly said it's a whole lot of nada, and everybody thinks that's so great here, but it was just a slip up. But it is. It's a whole lot of nada, right? There's a whole lot of no information that goes along with this, and we get so riled up about things that don't matter when we've got $36 trillion in debt. China is buying all of our farmland, and we're being beaten by our enemies at every front, and we're not focusing on the big things like the crypto situation here. The guy I'm running against, he's trying to replace the dollar, has been saying this for 5 years. He doesn't want cash anymore. He wants it all to be crypto. We've already seen that in El Salvador. We've already seen all of this. His Clarity Act that just passed, and the president's for it, but I'm not. And that's yet again.
Yeah, I was going to say, as someone who really doesn't know anything about crypto, is that really a great idea? It kind of raises some red flags with me off the bat.
Well, I can tell you this, as you can kind of tell by the way I live, I'm a little bit more traditional. What we saw when Europe wanted to make—
You've got the entire Revolutionary War behind you. I could have guessed that.
It's kind of the way I am. But what we saw with this EU deal that the president just got through, what did they get from us? Did they want our cryptocurrency? No. They wanted our oil. They wanted our energy. They wanted American hands building American energy. And that's how we move forward. We tell Russia, we tell China, you know what? You no longer provide us with what we need. We get China, we stop doing business with them, but then we get the EU to do it, and then we get Africa, as Africa being the whole continent that is growing, that we start to do those investments with them instead of having China do it. Because what China currently does is they go to these countries, these extremely poor nations, they build all the infrastructure for them. They can't afford to pay it back, and then China owns all of it, right? And that's not fair, nor is it equitable, nor is it the way that we should, allow the world to run. But no one tells China what to do because they produce all of their goods. Well, until 2000, 2001, we did that, and the world was better off for that. And this idea that America can't do that again is a joke to me. It definitely can be. And I don't understand the word can't. America, and can't just don't go together. And throughout history, that's never been the thing, and I want that to be the future too. But a lot of that blame, and I hate to say this, but boomers have a lot of representation in Washington, and one thing that they like to push on us is, well, the millennials don't like to work, and Gen Z doesn't like to work, and Gen Alpha, they'll never work. And it's like, okay, well, everybody I know has one or two jobs, or works at least 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week. And we're dedicating everything that we possibly have into this economy. And we're the great consumers now, not the boomers. So, I think that we can move into that realm. I think we can move into that space. But, I don't think crypto is the answer. The whole creation of crypto was to tear down nation states. And the fact that Republicans are on this is really blowing my mind. But I think all of it just comes down to a get-rich-quick scheme. And those never work. That's not an American thing. It's all just Ponzi. It's all fake. And this is coming from a young guy that definitely, I mean, and when I say a young guy, I'm talking to people that, like my opponent's almost 70 years old. I'm going to have to foot the bill on this. I'm going to be responsible for this. This will affect me. It will not affect him. And, I don't want that. I don't want that for young American families.
How long has he been in office there?
He's been in office for 10 years. So if he wins this go around, he'll be there for 12. And I will tell you this, I never really knock people that much for their donations, but I will say this, his looks like a James Bond villain film. He has Russian and Chinese CEOs that are all crypto. JP Morgan Chase is giving him over $3.5 million. It's just big banks, big crypto kings. And, mine we're up to 5,200. I think we're about to cross 5,300 just Americans that have donated money to my campaign. And, I think that that's very important to know that, I really have no interest in having international money in my campaign. Now, how do they do that? Because I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's taking cash from international countries. What I'm telling you is PACs, different associations, that's where they get that money from. Yes, that's part of politics, but that's part of the problem. We pushed an effort so hard because, of course, if you're being paid over $1 million to do it, you're going to make sure it happens. I just don't have time for that. I just don't have time for that, nor am I interested in it. And changing our whole economic system is just not smart to me. Not at all.
Yeah, these people running for office into their 80s and 90s, I mean, you'll have to pry their claws off the grips of power from beyond the grave. Yeah. We'll be dealing with them even after they're gone. I mean, typically I'm about respect your elders, but not when it comes to these people in office until they're 107.
Well, I'm Southern, so of course I respect my elders. That's just the way it is. And it's hard to speak about it. But we have gotten to a point to where, we have a generation of people that won't retire. They won't go home. So the cycle that we were supposed to go through, we're not able to do that. Purchasing homes, that's another issue that I have. We are allowing China and we're allowing private equity firms to purchase every home that the Americans can purchase as an American family, which causes a major issue. And I'm not really about that. So I don't like private equity firms. And I'll tell you why. They have no patriotism. They have no pride. And there has to be a sense of pride and patriotism in business, or, you get multinational corporations that don't care. And when that happens, consumers don't win in that situation. The business itself doesn't win in that situation because their quality gets so low to where you get recalls, you get certain things of that nature. Now, my personal opinion is we reward these people by retaining, customer or employee retention by how long they keep their employees, how much they invest in their communities. That's where you get tax breaks. So we can lower those taxes down even further, and they have to meet these requirements to where we do keep a steady work base. And I think those are the different types of things that we need to be focused on when we do a tax bill. I think that we get a lot of, let's try to help you, let's not try to help you. And then what happens by the time it actually is pushed through the machine and all the pork is added, we've done nothing for the American people. And we've done nothing for industry. I think that there are really good corporations in this country that want to do what's best for America. It's just really difficult to do so. And most of the time it's small businesses. As you know, I'm a little biased because that's what I've always done is help small businesses, but they affect, and they're the ones that give to the Little League and whatnot. And we want to focus on that. We want to grow that. And you would think with my guy being a former banker and owning a former community bank, he would do that. But with what he's doing right now, it's pushing them right out of business. Because when it goes to crypto, there's no way you're going to have your local credit union be able to compete against JP Morgan Chase or whatnot.
And I would guess that even before he was in office, there were people exactly like him right before with all the same views and the same policies. That's really what I'm somebody who was a know-nothing Democrat most of my life and then switched to become a Republican. I have come to see that most Republicans are equally full of shit. It really is the uniparty, like you said. So I personally think Trump is basically the first independent president that we've had in modern times. So it really is kind of like going against how both parties have operated for so long.
Well, I think you also you've got some that are ideologues and they won't budge at all on anything, right? There's a few things that I won't budge on. So I'm probably not going to budge on spending. If I'm elected, I can tell you I'm not voting for another continued resolution bill.
Thank you.
And I'll tell you what, the first one, if I would have been elected this first go around when Trump first took office, I probably would have. And I'll tell you why I would have on that one. It was like 60 days after everybody just got back in office. Yeah, I get that. But this one that's coming up, no way could that possibly happen, right? The first one, And the only reason I'm saying that is because I did agree with the first one, because the president just came back in. We don't even know his agenda yet. There's a lot that goes into that. We do, Doge was on its way. We knew there was going to be cuts. So it's kind of one of those things, fund the government for 6 more months, and then we're going to cut everything. Now, the problem I have with Republicans is we've been focused on cryptocurrency, and we've not cut a dime from the government spending. And we've had this clock going on for 6 months. I think there needs to be a 30% cut in government across the board, everybody. And we still would be fine. And, we are inheriting major problems, which is major spending problems. And we have a culture now that feels that that's okay. That it's all right. We can just spit more money at it. COVID was really bad about this. I think prior to COVID, the American people were paying their bills. There was no issue, no problem. I mean, credit card utilization was down to the lowest it had been in American history. Businesses were flourishing. I mean, we were doing so great. We were doing awesome. But that whole time period messed with the American people. And what I would like to do, and what I'm trying to do, is inject patriotism back into the American people. Be proud of what you do. Be proud of your country. Don't listen to Washington. Don't listen to the news channels. This is part of the reason I like to do this. I like to speak to gentlemen like you and podcast, because that I almost said lamestream media, but that mainstream media.
No, it's your inner boomer coming out.
Right, but that mainstream machine, man, it is. I have been at events at the White House, walked out, and they're like, it's a white supremacist event. It's like, well, it was actually in celebration of multiple different things, and it was all African-American individuals that were there.
Oh, they don't care. They're the blackface of white supremacy. Remember that one?
And I'm just kind of like, I've seen it. I've been a part of it. I feel like, well, you obviously didn't watch 1 second of what transpired here. But they're a wet blanket is what I like to call it. As soon as there's a spark of patriotism, just throw a wet blanket on it. Just like the parade for the Army, right? I thought that was a beautiful thing. I didn't even think it was, it really wasn't even that. It was a parade. It was a nice parade, but they're acting as
Nazi parade, you mean?
Yeah, they were acting as if we were Russia and we were going to have ICBMs go down and all this kind of stuff. And then it cost all this money and it didn't damage the road. I mean, it just was this big, huge thing. And that I can't help it that the president was born on that day. I can't help that. Right. Like,
but they had no problem when Biden was in office and had people flashing their titties on the White House lawn.
Yeah, and that I thought it was a gift to the American people. I mean, we did it with HW. I mean, it wasn't like we had never done this before. So I didn't think that it was that big of a deal. I thought it was great. I always want to celebrate our men and women. I did not serve, so every time that I see someone that has served, I always try to take the time. And I've always lived in a town. Now that I've moved out of my hometown, I've always lived in a town that had a base. So I do this quite frequently, where I just say thanks. I appreciate you and I thank you, because not all the time do they want to do what they're forced to do, but they serve in our military. They serve at the pleasure of the commander in chief. So I knew it was tough on them the last 4 years. I knew folks that were in Afghanistan, and that pullout was horrible, and they were embarrassed and they felt bad because they had friends there that they had that were locals, that were native, that it was just hard on them. And I know that a lot of our military, even some of my elected officials here in Arkansas, feel that they're their personal soldiers. And, I'm not a big boots on the ground type guy. I think that we have a lot of different warfare that can be done, from our ships and the submarines and the missiles and the drones and whatnot, that I really don't think boots on the ground is necessary moving forward, because of the strength of our military. But I hate the fact that they're used as pawns when that's not the way that this should be done. So, you still have a little bit of that neoconservative folks in Washington that the first thing they want to do is send troops in. Your Lindsey Grahams, and, I'm probably going to go my staff on this one, but Tom Cotton's the first one. They're always firing, let's send the troops in. And I'm just not about that. I don't think that that's good for, our country. The gentleman behind me in the boat there was pretty good about saying, hey, we're going to stay out of other people's conflicts because we don't want them in ours. And I think that's really important to do that. Definitely this nation.
The problem with Lindsey Graham is sometimes she just, it's that time of the month. And when it's that time of the month, she wants to just start bombing countries. She
Yeah,
can't
well,
help
I
it.
didn't appreciate in 2022, and the first thing out of his mouth after we felt like we were doing fairly well was, well, we're going to do a national ban on abortion. I was like, well, great. You just take the election for us. And, he says, well, I do this every year. And it's like, yeah, but you don't do a press conference every year. So that's part of that uniparty system to where it divides us. They like to stoke the ire of that. It raises campaign cash, and that's what they focus on. And the thing that I don't understand is politicians would be so much wealthier and better off if they would just do their job. If they would do it right, the American people wouldn't care how much they were paid if they didn't have a crooked government. They could be better off. They could profit from doing the right thing, but they don't choose to do that. They choose to be crooked. They choose to be, and what I mean by that is a lot of them have businesses outside and had businesses prior to being elected officials and continue to have businesses after being elected officials, and their businesses would be better off. So their employees would be better off if they did the right thing, but they just refuse. They are chasing campaign cash. Even as a candidate, I have to call people all day long to try to panhandle it. And I hate it. I hate calling people to ask for money. I think I've never had to in my life. This is the first time I've ever had to do that. If I wanted to do anything in life, I'll find a new contract that'll do it. Right. If I wanted a new vehicle or wanted whatever I wanted, I would just work harder and I would provide for it. But, I'm running against, $2.5 million, and it will be growing. And, it's just one of those things that I've been honest in my life. So I don't have millions and millions of dollars. I definitely probably could have been, but I've always tried to work for candidates that were like myself, that, were grassroots. So I have to do it. Right. And some of them ask you for crazy things. And it's like, hey, click. I don't have time for that. That's where we're here. That's why we're here. That's why we've got the greatest nation on earth, but we could be $60 trillion a year in wealth instead of being somewhere around our $32 to $33 trillion of wealth that we produce every year when it comes down to GDP.
I think what Duke said here is very true. The people who wholesale believe CNN and New York Times are the biggest problem we have. Hey, I used to be one of those people who thought if Rachel Maddow didn't say it, it didn't happen. So how do you break through to these people who are just hypnotized by supporting the current thing and believing whatever the media says?
It's tough. I can tell you, somebody that's worked in politics for quite a while, trying to get folks elected is try to get them to believe the truth. That's why I was honest after you posted this. That one gentleman came on and said that French Hill had run that ad, and that wasn't true. And I'm the first one to say, hey, that's not true. It would have benefited me to just leave it alone and not touch it. People would have been like, oh, yeah, I can't believe he ran that. But actually, in that situation, and for the people that maybe weren't aware, they ran an ad that was just completely a stereotypical, horrible situation where it was trying to use African-American females, and that it was not accurate. And come to find out after it was all over and done with, the gentleman actually did this all over the country, and he tried to act as if it was a Republican group, but it was actually a Democrat that ran these ads, but made it stereotypical so that it was kind of a counter ad against the Republican Party. The problem
Shocker.
That's
what this is what Democrats always do. They think everyone is as racist as they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as much as, French and I don't agree on things, I don't think that French Hill would ever support anything like that. Okay. So I will win this office because I'm honest and because my ideas are superior. That's just where I'm at with that. But, part of the problem is super PACs and money in politics. I think we have to track down the media. If you start to notice that now that we pulled this money from PBS and from NPR. NPR's rodeo. But since we pulled them from those two groups, if you start to notice things have changed, then they're already starting to change just a tad. And we live in an environment, definitely with those two organizations, there's plenty of advertisement that's out there. We live in a capitalist society. They will find money quickly. There's no problem, no issue. Part of it's hyperbole. They said now that these are shutting down, there's elected officials saying people will die because PBS is not on television. And
versus the thing they said we were going to die from the day before, we were going to die from the tariffs, and we were going to die. We're dying every day.
Yeah. And that's where I'm saying, like, hyperbole, the American people have to get out of the doom and gloom. And unfortunately, there are certain people in the world, they won't get out of that doom and gloom, and there's nothing I can do about that. But what I can do is for the American people that want better. And what I recommend is outlets like yours. I consume my media completely different than I ever have in the past. So used to, I was a Fox News guy. I only listened to Fox News. That was it. That was, if they said it, it was true, right? As you get a little bit older, you start to understand I need to listen to all sides. So I actually get my news from everybody. I laugh sometimes when I get it from the opposite side. I'm not going to sit there and tell you that I don't. And I don't sometimes get enjoyment by watching their head spins,
It's like entering an alternate reality.
It can be. And if you are somebody that's in the middle and you watch either one of the news programs, if you watch Fox and then you flip it over to MSNBC, you're like, okay, well, which country do I actually live in? And I think that, I've talked to my campaign staff about this because we've worked across the country together. So they're more than just my campaign staff. We've got people elected and we're close friends. I said, how do we fix this? I believe in freedom of speech and I do not believe in censorship at all. But how do we hold these people accountable when they just blatantly lie? And, that's something that we've got to work on. If you just come out and you blatantly lie, then, I think you need to be held accountable. I live in a state, Arkansas slander laws don't exist. So you can say anything you want to in a newspaper and it does not matter. Yeah, they don't exist. I mean,
that's crazy.
You can say whatever you want to. They can run a retraction or choose not to. There's really no legal. It is extremely hard in the state of Arkansas to prove that you had to have some kind of financial or physical harm to it, and that's hard to do. Of course, definitely if you're in politics. How do you say, well, that cost me an election, and how do you put a nominal value on that? So, it's hard. Certain states have to determine that. And, I tell everybody it's uncomfortable to be an American sometimes because you have to be responsible and you have to be a grown up, and that makes it tough. So, that's the uncomfortable part about being an American is freedom of speech, even though sometimes it's inflammatory and it's rough and it's bad and messy. I would take that any day over censorship. And sometimes
Absolutely.
the White House has tried to go towards a censorship style, and I'm not about that. I'm not really for that. So, I've got folks, I got people on my page right now. We laugh. We were wanting to know how quickly it's going to take them to message or put a comment on when I post something. I like clockwork. I know they're coming.
Oh, you get the leftists who get they get a hate boner for you, and it's like they do not. It's like you're catching a parasite.
We almost have bets going, and I told them, I said, well, dang, it took that. It's particular people we know them by name, and I'm like, hey, it took them almost half a day. They must have not had internet or something. I don't know what's up, but no, I don't censor people. I let them go. The only time that I ever censor anybody is if it's death threats or they're saying that against some of my supporters or people that are in the comment section. Then yeah, they have to go because I have to take that serious. I worked for a company and we had folks on the ground in Butler, so I take that very, very serious. Used to, and I tell everybody, take your hatred out on me. That's perfectly fine. I've chosen to do that. Don't take it out on my staff. Don't take it out on my supporters, but take it out on me. I'm doing a town hall this next month. I expect people to come in and I want them to holler at me. I need them to have that release if that's what.
Where is that if people want to go?
It's going to be in Little Rock. I'm finishing out the details with it with one of the universities. I'm trying to get through all the red tape with that, but I'll have it out by the end of the week. Hopefully, we're going to have.
You're going to the university. Oh, good luck with that.
Yeah,
I was speaking at a couple universities in California. Those bitches are crazy there. I don't know. Maybe they're more sane. Would you say, as somebody who's never been there, would you say that Arkansas is kind of more sane?
Yeah. I mean, I would think so. So the thing about Arkansas, if you've got a true Arkansan, let me rephrase that, because my district's a melting pot. There's a lot of people that have moved here for industry and whatnot. If you have a true Arkansan, they're going to put you on the hot seat, but they're going to be respectful about it. You might get a little hot under the collar or say, no, that's not true or whatnot. And that's fine. But as in the full crazy behavior, no, I don't know. That's not Arkansas. We're a little bit above that. We're a little better than that. But I'm not going to say that everybody that, resides in my district is an Arkansan, because that's not the truth. But if you're born and raised in Arkansas, no, we handle it a little bit better. Are
there a lot of transplants moving there from blue states?
Yeah, there are. There's a lot of retirees that are moving to Arkansas. So we're usually number one in retirees moving to the state. Not particularly in my district. It's usually in the 4th district because there's a village there called Hot Springs Village, which is a beautiful place. But a lot of people retire in Arkansas because it's a great place to retire. But it's also a great place to own a home, to start a business. It's a great place to work. It's extremely, our quality of life and cost of living is quality of life's high, cost of living is really, really low. So it's a great place to get started. And I want to turn that into, it's not just a great place to get started, it's a great place to always live and to create that generational family there, like mine has. And, my district is definitely perfect for that. It's prime for that. I'm one of the most populated districts in the state. It's a competition back and forth between my district and Bentonville area, which is that is the 1st congressional district, I believe. And we go back and forth between which one's the most populated, densely. But mine's more city. I grew up in a rural community. So, moving to the city took an adjustment for me about 10 years ago, but, I enjoy it now. I'm not that far from everything, and I kind of like it.
It's interesting. I moved to Florida I escaped the Communist Republic of New York City. And I'll see a lot of times these people on Twitter or whatever saying, don't move here. Don't move here if you're from there. What's interesting is that a lot of people who move to Florida or Texas vote Republican at a higher rate than people who are from there. And I think maybe that's because we've seen we have looked into the abyss. We have seen how bad things could get and don't want to repeat that in the places we flee to.
So there's a few times that I feel what I consider kind of weak. It's when I travel outside of the country and when I travel to New York City or San Francisco or LA. Because
on behalf of New Yorkers, I'm sorry. This wasn't what was intended of our city.
I just feel that I have to watch my tongue a little more. Like I can't be as, hey, that's not right.
In New York was supposed to be where people tell you off and tell you what's on their mind.
That was my, because I'm a kid from the 90s. So what I anticipated when I got there was you got to be real rough, right? Like I'm going to have to be a little rough around the edges. I can't be, extremely nice like I normally try to be. So I had prepared myself for that. And then when I got there, I was like, wow, okay, these folks aren't as tough as I thought they were. It seemed like they were
invaded.
Yeah,
it's the opposite in New York, is that because I was born and raised there, and most of these people who just moved there from other places, they're the ones who are just taking over and destroying the city.
Yeah, everybody just seemed to be offended about everything, and I was like, "Well, man,
in New York, I think I will never be able to wrap my mind around that."
Right. But hey, it's a beautiful city.
And now they're going to elect a communist mayor.
Yeah, no, that I hate to see this, but if they do it, then it'll be something I can always reference and say, this is exactly why you don't do this.
Maybe it needs to get that bad before. See, I think this is a good point, by the way, because I think if you want to see a microcosm of everything wrong with the Republican Party, look at places like New York or LA. I know intimately the New York Republican Party. They do absolutely jack shit nothing. They could not have been bothered to run a primary in this. So now they're annoyed that they're stuck with a candidate. I like him, but they're stuck with a candidate who lost by like 40 points last time.
Yeah.
And they're saying he should drop out. While they're putting no money behind him, no nothing behind him, no support. They're saying he should drop out. If you don't like your candidate, run a primary. We have a process for that, but it's unbelievable. And now their best hope is getting behind communism light, Eric Adams or Cuomo. It makes me insane because just in my lifetime in New York City, we had Republican mayors, governors, senators. And at a certain point, the Republican Party in New York just washed their hands, gave up, said, oh, we'll never win. Meanwhile, Democrats are just chipping away in red states, in Florida and Texas, probably in Arkansas, and they get a little more each time, while Republicans just give up. It is sorry to rant. It is unbelievable to me.
Your frustration is the frustration that so let's see, 2018. I think 2018 was when I told all of my friends that work in Republican politics, I said, we're going to lose the South. And they just laughed at me. And I said, Georgia, Tennessee. I said, so the thing is, I said, the left can't win the bellwether states anymore. So that blue wall is broken for them. And there's a lot of mass migration from the blue wall down to the South because most people don't realize that the South is the highest GDP now. We produce the most money in the country.
Oh.
that comes from all of the factories moving. So you now have Hyundai, you have all these different companies that now have moved to the South, and we are the best place to invest in because of our tax laws. And the problem with that is the Democratic Party know that, so they're trying to chip away the South, because you got to have the South to win the presidency. There's no way around it if you're a Republican. So if you can pick off 1 or 2 states, it's done. The Democrats win, right? So, of course, they tried in North Carolina. They've dedicated a lot of time and effort in North Carolina. North Carolina, last election, I thought, before all of that came out with Mark Robinson, who knew that all that was a thing, but I thought he was going to be a shoo-in. Now that's caused some really big shakeup in North Carolina. And, there's a good chance with this tiff between, Tom Tillis and Donald Trump that, the former governor could potentially be a senator there. So what we have to focus on, Republicans are good at winning power. We're not good at retaining it. And part of the reason is a lot of Republicans don't brag. And that's part of the game here, is you have to say, these are all of the things.
You would think they'd be good at that when Trump is our leader.
The president is good at it. Everybody else is not great at it. Now, the Speaker of the House is actually getting better about it. But the problem that I have with this Republican Party is it reminds me of the progressive era in the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s, to where we're not really adhering to anything. And we're trying to follow polls. There's parts of the big, beautiful bill that I like, but there's parts of it I do not like. And I think that what we have to do as Republicans, if we have a bill that's presented to us in 3 hours and it's 1,300 pages, I'm not voting for that. You got to give me some more time. I'm not saying I'm a no. I'm not saying I'm a yes, but I got to read about it. Thankfully, the AI section was removed when it got to the Senate, but we have a problem in this country. And it's in the Capitol itself. The House always feels that it's subservient to the Senate when the House is the one that controls all the money. So I am not going to get elected and say, oh, well, I'm subservient to all of the senators over in the other side. No, I'm just as important and just as powerful as you are. And I'm going to send a good bill over to them. And if they alter and change it and make it a bad bill, then we're not going to pass it when it comes back over to us. But it just feels like there's just a power shift and a power dynamic in Washington where no one's actually taking the blame and the responsibility that they should when it comes down to certain bills, certain issues and whatnot. And that's why I feel like we're in a progressive era, kind of party way. And that led to a lot of problems in our country. And I don't like to see that. And I say that because this crypto nonsense gets passed and it feels like income tax. It feels like going away from the gold standard. Those are things that I know Republicans did, and I'm not happy with and I'm not proud of. And I think it caused us issues and caused us problems in the modern era over the last 100 years. And I just feel like we're kind of in that direction because we had some folks that said, hey, there's a lot of money to be made out of this. Let's do it. And that's great for their donors, but it's not great for the American people. And regardless of what party I am, I'm an American first, and I believe in American families. I think it's our greatest asset. And without the American family, this country dies, right? So, I'm also very pro education. I think that children need to be educated to the best ability possible because that's our next generation. And as Republicans, if we do the right thing, then smart people are going to vote for us. Like it's just the way it is. I have confidence in that. And maybe even a little cocky about it, but it just doesn't seem like my colleagues or my future colleagues feel that way. So I've got to kind of reintroduce that for the party and for the electorate, right? You are important and you are powerful because you're an American. And that's the way I want to go with it. The president's done a pretty dang good job about it. But we have to continue that, right? Because the president eventually is going to run out of time. And we can't give away, America first. And regardless of what people feel about the president, okay, if you don't like him or whatever, that's a personal thing, and I'm not going to take that away from you. But the policies work, so the policies stay. If you want to change the rhetoric, that's fine, but the policies stay. And you can't tell me that tariffs don't work. You can't tell me that these things don't work because we just got almost $1 trillion deal this week from the EU when we've never been able to get anything from them, and they know that they have to do as we say. And I think that all Republicans need to be that way. The House caucus needs to stand together and be that way, which is everybody else does what we say. We don't do what they say.
Did you see the clip this week of Bill Maher talking about, the tariffs are actually working. I thought they were going to be the end of the world.
So I got into it with a gentleman before I even decided to run this campaign that went to Oxford, and he was highly decorated. And I went to a small little school in Southwest Arkansas, and I bested him in every argument that we had. Because the thing that was shocking to me is everyone said, well, Ronald Reagan didn't believe in tariffs, and everybody circulated the video, but Ronald Reagan put the highest tariffs on U.S. steel before President Trump did this last go around. So Reagan used tariffs. Everybody's used tariffs. We've had tariffs in this country since the very beginning. Alexander Hamilton was the first one to push and promote tariffs. I look at tariffs as a great gift for freedom. I look at it as a great gift for even the oppressed in other countries, because eventually that will break and those people will have to do the right thing. I hate slavery. My family were abolitionists when they came to this country and fought in the Revolution. Tried to get it passed, the very when our Constitution was founded, get it part of the Bill of Rights. They have pushed that rhetoric in every state they were in. We've always been abolitionist. So to me, having someone slave labor in China by different groups, and then you put those shoes on your feet or whatever it may be, that's not, I don't know where the self-righteousness of saying I'm so great, I'm so this, I'm so that. No, you've got, African children are dying digging lithium out of Africa, right? And we've got lithium here in Arkansas. We have lithium in this country. We don't need to buy them from those countries.
Where are all the kindness and love and empathy and all those people on that? They don't give a shit. It's hilarious. If you look up the things that Democrats were saying in the slavery days, it is verbatim the things they're saying about illegal aliens now. Oh, if we end slavery, who's going to pick the cotton? Who's going to work in the fields?
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of people, politicians won't tell you this, but I will. A lot of farmers in this country, some of them are Democrats, and they use those poor folks. They come to this country, they promise them that they're going to pay them, and then they drop them off at the border. They get them on food stamps, and they provide them with food stamps. They provide their food for them. So they feed them, they give them the alcohol that they want. They say they're going to get paid when the job's done, and then they drop them off at the border, and they get a whole brand new crew the next picking season. And that's not the way America is ran, right? And when I say I'm pro-life, I mean it all the way through. And that this republic can provide for everyone. We have the hands, the ability, and the might. I just think it's lazy, and I don't have that in me, and I don't think America has that in her. So it's just a lazy approach to doing the right thing. And I'm just about doing the right thing. I tell my staff all the time, I said, you know what, we're going to make it. And when I make it, I might only be there for one term. But in that one term, we're going to create a lot of hell in those 2 years. And
I love it.
Look at.
Let me say, by the way, anyone watching, his links are below. So follow this guy, check out his campaign website, do all the stuff. Something I wanted to ask you a while ago, you had mentioned the COVID era. What was that like in Arkansas? I would think that would have been more sane there, maybe, versus people don't realize in New York, that shit went on for like 3 years. It was like 3 years that we were locked down. So for me personally, as an American, it is very important to me for Republicans seeking office to flat out say, we will never let this happen again.
Well, let me tell you something about Arkansans. Okay, we got about 3 million people, and we got about 10 guns per person. So we got a lot more guns than we do people. The state tried. So Asa Hutchinson was a governor at the time, and Democrat. He was a Republican, but I never found one thing about him that was a Republican.
Yeah.
So he ran this go around. He was going to beat Donald Trump. Of course, I don't even think he got 1%. So there you go. I had doctors that were reaching out to me because I'd worked in healthcare for a while. They were utilizing anthrax protocol in Arkansas. So they were doing they were doing the absolute wrong thing to treat patients for COVID. And they were like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I said, well, we'll try. We'll see what we can do. And nothing came of it. We couldn't do anything to change it until federal guidelines changed. The problem that I had with COVID is, there's a few things. First of all, I actually am a very big supporter. I'm Baptist by faith, and this is even something that we feel in the Baptist church. I'm a big supporter of separation of church and state. And the reason why I feel this is, we had a lot of people who were getting that COVID cash in, right? And they were advocating for that. And that's how the government was tricking people into doing what they wanted. When our government found out they couldn't do it by just telling us, then they would give them COVID cash, and they would try to get everybody on it. Churches, school, I mean, everybody. So they bought and paid for, and once they were in their bank account, then they could tell people what they could and couldn't do. Now, everybody thought, what I always pick about is I'm about 6 weeks to about 2 months ahead of everybody when I start talking about these things. And everybody's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not true. And then I got a lot of, oh, yeah, you were right. You were right. We shouldn't have done this. Now our church was being shut down because we didn't spend the money like we were supposed to, but we didn't know how we were supposed to spend it. And that was the thing. They wanted to give all this money to everybody. They passed it quick. Everybody got the cash, but they didn't tell them how they could spend it in their business. It was retroactive after it was done. Well, actually, this is how you're supposed to spend it. So a lot of people got in trouble in that situation. But if I'm elected, I promise you that it's not going to happen again.
Thank you.
Even if I can't stop it because I'm one vote, I will be as vocal as possible to say this will never happen again. But let me promise you this: if the government's offering you money, a stimulus check or whatever it may be, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's a fail-safe for them. They know that they've got control there. But free government money is never a good thing because it's not free, and it always comes with strings, and every bit of that cash came with strings. So I hated to see that. I hated to see what it did to our country. It changed the metric of how people felt. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't even like that term. But it just felt like one big CIA operation the whole year.
Yup. Thank you.
The death hornets, all this kind of stuff, right? And it just constantly felt like we were just under some kind of dark cloud every day. Every day something new was happening. 15 people shot in Chicago. Well, that happens every weekend, but it made national news, right? So it just seemed like if anything happened in the government, it was just something to push Republicans out of power. And I think they were successful on that.
Yeah.
And
I think it was the biggest scam in modern history to remake society, to get people hooked on government money, on staying home and being dependent, on transferring wealth from the working class to, small businesses had to close, but corporations could stay open.
If you think about 2019 America and you think about 2020 America, we went from being the most capitalist nation on earth to everybody was getting a check from the government. Not one person wasn't, pretty much. And it just changed the metrics across the board, and it put everybody in a depression and in a funk. And I'm not going to say that I was in a depression or a funk, but I was kind of like, oh, this is going to be hard to get out of. This is going to be hard as a Republican to ever offer capitalism back to the American people because their rent's being paid by somebody else right now, and that's hard to do once you get started, right? But thankfully, over the last 4 years of being subject to that type of rhetoric, the American people are willing and able and ready to go back to making money, and hopefully we can get these interest rates down and, the economy kicks back again. And the American people are doing great. But yeah, it was rough. It was tough. And I hope we never have to experience that again. Because we
got very lucky, and I'm totally with you that Trump is flawed in his ways. However, we got very lucky that we won this election because I genuinely believe Democrats would have, the moment they won that election, if they did, would have tried doing this again. It would have been climate lockups. It would have been the bird flu lockups. They would have tried to keep this going forever.
Yeah, I just don't think that that's good for the American people. I don't think that anything. So the thing about it is, one thing that unites all of us is freedom and liberty and independence. That is one thing that it doesn't matter what political spectrum you fall on, you believe in self-independence and liberty and the way you want to do things in your household. And I like that. And that's why I think America never dies out, because of that spark and that flame of I am just as important as the president of the United States. Good. Keep that. That's what I want you to keep. And I think that's the only reason we survived through COVID, because you've got a lot of countries that just completely collapsed. Just folded in, they were done. And, I'm just glad that the American people were able to pull the rest of the world out. And that's also something I'm not happy about, that we had to pull the rest of the world out of this situation.
Yeah.
But I think that COVID led to a lot of these wars. I think it led to a lot of these issues and problems that we're in right now because no one else had anything else to do. So just sit in a cave and get angry, right? And I think that's kind of where we got there. But I hope we never have to go through that again. That was a horrible time.
I think a lot of problems we have can be traced back to that. I wanted to ask you if you could pick one thing what is the biggest problem with the Republican Party? Because for me personally, since becoming a Republican, I find that nobody hates the Republican Party more than other Republicans. There are so many damn flaws with it. There are so many people, like I said, I think Trump is basically the first independent president, and we're sort of remaking the Republican Party. And in that, there are a lot of those uniparty assholes that we got to sweep out of power.
I think there's two things that kind of go hand in hand. First is a lot of Republicans like to stick to social issues, right? And social issues to me are not something that government should legislate. Definitely not the federal government. Your state wants to do that, or your local government wants to, that's fine. But I don't think that federal politics should play into, a lot of this social nonsense that we find, because what I might find not appropriate in Arkansas is not something that in California, that they probably find it 100% appropriate. Well, they get to live as they wish in California. That's a great thing about our republic, is that we have 50 sovereign states, and you can live as you wish in those states. That's why you get Florida. And I, of course, live in Arkansas, in God's country. But
I would say Florida is God's country.
But then you also have a problem that we're not adhering to fiscal responsibility. And that's our whole MO. That's what we're supposed to be. Republicans are supposed to be the ones that are responsible with money. And we're just not doing that. These big spending bills and adding so much to the deficit, I'm not okay with that. And it's because we're not cutting spending, right? Tax breaks, let me tell you something. I have never understood when they say, well, we can't pay for the tax break. Tax breaks don't cost you anything. It's the spending. So at the time you do a tax break, we need to do a cost. We've got to cut the spending right off the top. But also growth and development. There's a lot that goes into that they don't take into consideration when they say when we give tax breaks, right? But we're not doing that. If we can get the American people back to where, I went the other day. I'm going to the lake, and baseball gloves $140 for a baseball glove, and then a bat's $215. And then you go and you look at the helmet, and you look at everything. You're talking about.
That's what it costs.
You're talking about a couple. I mean, if you're going to buy a good quality, which my father always did, and my dad was.
I haven't had a baseball glove since I was like 5. So
I played football more than I did baseball. I quit playing baseball when I was around 11 years old. My dad loved it. He was a coach, and it broke my heart to tell him, but I hated it, and I wanted to play football. But I started looking, at America's favorite pastime and what they have to do for their kids. And you're talking about a couple $1,000s just for them to pay America's favorite pastime. So you start putting all that together, and we're not helping the American people. That's part of the reason why, I've pushed for expanding and paying and covering all the public school lunches, right? So most states already do this. Some states don't, but you have 3 kids like in Arkansas. Taking $2,000 a year to have to pay for your school's lunch is actually not that. It affects quite a bit my families. My families are our median average is not that great when it comes down to our income, right? And that affects my families. But knowing they don't have to pay for their lunch and they can just send their kids to school, it lowers property taxes across the board. So the federal government's responsible for it. It's already paid for because it's already allocated. We're just now taking that money and saying, hey, it's every kid now instead of doing all this paperwork. So the money's already going to the school district. I'm just saying it covers every one of them. So the families aren't having to pay for it. You got 3 kids, you're trying to send them to school. You're trying to make sure they got all their stuff for their baseball teams and whatnot, whatever it may be, ballet, softball, basketball, everybody goes to a camp because as a working class family, what is the thing we're trying to do? Hey, if you can get a sports scholarship or you can get a band scholarship or you can get one of those things, it'll pay for your school because mom and dad can't afford it anymore. So, I'm trying to give the American family the best benefit possible without spending any money. I've drafted 5 pieces of legislation in every one of them. 2 of them cost money. The other ones don't. And that's just the way I feel it needs to go. And the ones that save the money more than pay for the ones that cost. And to me, that should be the balance sheet for the Republican Party. Everything that we do, is it cost or save? And we should have a cost and saving analysis. And by the end of the year, we should have a surplus. It's not complex. It's not difficult. It's not that hard. I don't feel sorry for people like PBS. I don't. I love Sesame Street and all those things, right? And I think it's
not anymore. You mean we don't need to pay for Elmo gets a trans friend?
Well, it probably is headed in that direction. It definitely will be now that it'll be all privately funded. But the thing about it is they still can provide that. They can still provide that because all of these companies will invest in them. So the idea that they're just going to they're just going to vanish. They're going to go away, that they won't have it anymore. Yet again, it's some of that hyperbole I just don't believe in. We're all adults here. So let's just sit down and have adult conversations. You don't have to placate me like a child. And that's what frustrates me is Washington placates the voters or tells them what they want to hear. And I'm not about that. I'm going to tell you what, this is my idea. This is my path. This is the full way that I feel we get there. And either you're on or you're off. But I'm not going to modulate just to win votes. I think that that's also extremely toxic for our country. And that's why we're here. We've got a uniparty system, or we are so far to the right and so far to the left that I can't tell the difference. You know, they scream fascism, and I'm like, which side? Which one? What are you talking about? Like, both are saying the exact same thing. If you really follow politics today, if you go all the way so far to the right and all the way to the left, they're saying the exact same thing. And that's where I'm like, okay, can everybody come back to the middle just a tad? And let's have serious conversations and not get so riled up. I tell my staff, I tell everybody, I think we are always boiling or getting close to boiling. We're at like 210, 211, water boils at 212. I feel like we're constantly always at each other's throats. And politics.
Wait, that went over my head. Is that Arkansas slang?
The boil point of water?
Yeah, I have no idea what you just said.
You know, a football coach told me that at one point in time, to hold your composure. I was a lineman, so you got to hold your composure quite a bit. It gets kind of dirty in the trenches there. So he told me that, and it's always stuck with me. That water boils at 212. And most of the time on the football field, you're at 210, 211, but you got to hold your composure. You can't get into a fight on the football field. I didn't. I was always able to hold my composure, but my brothers on the line there, they didn't always do that. So
yeah, this is why I don't do football. I'm too Italian for that. I'd have like the football version of road rage.
Yeah, well, it can get there. Let me tell you, it can.
That just sounds kind of fun. Maybe I should start doing football.
Well, I'll tell you this. I've always believed in sportsmanship, right? Like sportsman conduct and all that kind of thing. Because I like the best people by doing the right thing, not because to me that's actual competition. But some people don't always play by the rules, and my temper has raised. I'm not going to say that it hadn't. I'm not perfect.
Good. I think I speak for many Republicans that we want temper. We want the only thing that these communist bastards understand is strength.
Yeah, well, I can tell you this. If I was on a committee with some of these folks and they get on their tangents, I'm just going to say, hey, look, I don't know how you made it here, right? Like what I don't understand is how some people make it to Washington.
Yeah.
You know, I understand when people have a difference of opinion and you choose someone, but sometimes I look at folks and I'm like, okay, that's all you had to choose from. You know, from AOC talking about flagellation of cows on the House floor. I don't think that's important.
Oh my God, I forgot about that one.
Should it be discussed on the House floor? You know, I think that there's just some wild and crazy radical things that we talk about that are kept in the minutes that we will study 100 years from now. And that's what our poor children will have to read about.
Who brought out photos to the House floor of her thirst traps?
Oh, you're talking about Nancy Mace.
That was... She was like,
that's my side.
My boyfriend showed photos of me in my bra. Here, see me in my bra.
Yeah. She brought her photos out. Yeah.
I mean, respect. I think she was trying to find a date. Like, I'm like, that's kind of, I should try that myself.
I can't remember exactly why she brought it out. I know that they were discussing. So I think she had been abused, and I think that was part of it. She was being recorded, so she was trying to show, but I don't think she needed it. I don't think we had to look at the evidence. I think we knew it. But you know,
I think she was trying to find a date.
Nancy's a fun. I want to actually work with her. I think that she brings a lot of honesty and breaks down a lot of what I call the fourth wall and just sits down and talks to the American people like they're supposed to. You know, it's kind of like Senator Kennedy from Louisiana is really big about that too. Just kind of breaking down all this ivory tower nonsense, which is not what it is. When real Americans get elected, politics is fun. It's actually fun. It's interesting. You get things done. But when you just got a bunch of folks that are just one lobbyist mouthpiece after another, you know, and the Democrats are really bad about
like
this.
Miss Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, well, they are, and the uniparty is really good about it, but the Democrats are real good. They'll have their buzzword of the day. The news reporters, the politicians, they all say the exact same thing, whatever it may be, treason or whatever the word is for the day,
Fascism.
the buzzword. And now it's starting to seem that Republicans are starting to do that too. And if both sides are doing it, then there's no sense in watching it. I mean, at this point, just put ChatGPT against Grunk, and that'll be the argument of politics moving forward. It's just one chatbot talking to another at that point, if you don't have actually true ideas between the brain. And you see that. You see that in Washington. I mean, you see where you've got some elected officials that say that an AR-15 weighs 200 pounds and it shoots a round that'll, armor, all this nonsense. I'm like, okay.
Wait, someone said that?
Yeah, I shouldn't speak bad about her because she's passed on now, but it was Representative Sheila Jackson Lee from Houston.
Oh God.
She said that it weighed 250 pounds and it shot around this big and the hole was this big. And yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
What do these people live on?
Well, the problem is that they rely so heavily on their staff, and some staff members are awesome, but most of them are volunteers or interns, and they think that they know what they're talking about. The politician has no clue, so they just trust it, and then they go public with it. And that's a sad reality, and just proof that none of these bills are read. So it's sad. I'm different. I draft my legislation. I read bills. I focus on that because at the end of the day, I want the same little boy that grew up in a trailer house in Arkansas like I did to have meetings at the White House like I did, right? And I think the only way that you get there is for them to have the same advantages or better advantages that I did in life. I'm a little bit different. I am a millennial. I'm not a boomer, so I don't expect people, nor do I want them to have to struggle like I did to get to where I was. I want it to be easier because I think America is better off that way. Now, I've learned from my mistakes. I've learned from my, every little hurdle I've had to jump through and the hardships that I've had to go through in life. I've lost grandfathers. My dad was, in a horrible accident and in 2020, and I've taken care of him ever since. And so, yeah, I've learned from those things, right? And it's made me a better person. And I've navigated Medicare and Medicaid and the whole thing, right, for grandparents and all that stuff. So I appreciate every life experience that I've had. I just hope I want to make it easier for everybody else. Because at the end of the day, we're all a family. Some family members are easier to love than others, but at the end of the day, I care for every American that lives in this country. And I want us to have better rights, and I want us to have a better country than what we currently have. Because right now I can't tell the difference of if you're an American or if just someone just pops over the border, what's any different, right? What is the rights of being an American if everybody gets the exact same thing as everybody else? And I want us to always be that place to where, the poor folks in other parts of the country that are fighting and even dying sometimes to get family members over here. I want us to always be that place where they can land. And, first and second generation Americans, when they come here legally, and what they provide for our country and knowledge and grit is just impressive to me. You're down in Florida, so you know exactly what it's like. The Cuban Americans are some of the hardest working, God-fearing patriots I've ever seen.
That's why they don't want to hear none of this communist bullshit.
Yeah, because they fleed it. They've already experienced it. I had a privilege of riding next to a gentleman that he came as a child. His parents came. His father was a doctor in Cuba before Fidel, of course, took over. And then, of course, after he did, they came to America. And he was just telling me about that situation. He was an older gentleman. And, it brought tears to my eyes because the way he talked about America, I wish all Americans felt that way. I feel that way about America, but as you become an adult, you find out not everyone does, but just to see the joy and the light in his eyes to know and that he just wished he was born in America, that he could say he had always been an American. That was just such my heart swelled 3 times, even this old Grinch. I felt great just hearing of the people that come to this country and love it. And that's what we are. And I want us to keep that way. And that's why I say, turn that mainstream media off. It's just toxic. That's all it is. That's how they get their ratings.
The more people watch that, the more uninformed they are.
Yep.
1 second, Chase, before we continue, let's have a very quick word from our sponsor.
It's time for my grifting. Give me all your money. Don't just be a drifter. Help me be a grifter.
Fuck you, pay me.
So if you like the channel, help support the channel. Send in your super chats. Join my Patreon. Join my locals. The links are below. I think I forgot to copy them below. However, MikeHarlow.locals.com. Join the stuff. We do movie night, game night, lots of fun stuff. And like I said, this great guy, his website is below. So do all the stuff. Chase, has your opponent agreed to debate you yet? Because I kind of want to see this debate.
That'll never happen. So let me tell you about Arkansas politics. We have advocated across, and it's Republican Party of Arkansas. We have advocated across the board that we just feel like anytime you have a primary or the general election or whatnot, there should be a mandatory debate. I've always felt that way. So the thing about it is, I am firm in what I believe is great for this country, right? And I can argue it upside down, backwards, and forwards. And I'm comfortable in my convictions for this country. So I have nothing to hide. I'm excited to debate, but it'll never happen. So what Arkansas's delegation to Washington, what they do is their MO is to ignore anyone. They just don't exist. He doesn't exist to me either. It's a whole new path forward. And I don't even think, the only time I bring him up is just with this clarity nonsense with the cryptocurrency, because it's his bill. And the fact that I know that Arkansas is a precursor to what can destroy this country, I won't let that happen, right? I'm not going to let that. It hasn't passed. They're supposed to pick it up after the recess. I'm hoping that they're tied up with the continued resolution and he doesn't get it passed, and we've saved the republic, right? I advocated so hard 2 weeks ago when all of that was going on, when the Senate was coming over, and the president signed it. And, I think the real problem with it is, I don't know if anyone sat down and told the president the truth. As someone that's worked around folks that works in the White House, they don't tell him the truth half the time. What they want is they tell him what they feel like is convenient for them or what he wants to hear. And that, the president respects people because he's a businessman. I've been a businessman. I've worked around businessmen, doctors, surgeons, the whole thing. And if Trump and I are in the room together, we're going to sit down and I'm going to have a serious conversation and say, Mr. President, you know what? It is profitable, but this is the end result with this. Is this truly the way you want to go with it? French is furious because the president is trying to make sure that we won't have a digital currency. But French has wrote about it for 6 years. That's exactly what he wants. He's actually the one that wrote the letter to the Federal Reserve advocating that they do this. So he wants this because he's in bed with all of these folks. And the problem with that, guys, a lot of people are probably like, oh, well, it's no different than using my debit card. It's a major issue and a major problem because a computer computation will never compete with my businesses, with the petroleum that's in the ground here, with gold, whatever it may be. Now, I probably sound old and antiquated because I want to go back to the gold standard, but it is a benefit for our country. Will I get that? Maybe not, but I at least want to stay on the fiat system. I do not want to replace my currency with crypto. And the thing is it's not just crypto. They want to put your medical records on the blockchain, where bureaucrats now have control of these things. And they say, oh, well, the government won't ever spy on you. Oh, well, 3.8 million Americans, probably including myself, the FBI had to admit that they looked at our bank accounts when they weren't supposed to. And that was in a court of law. So we know that that's public knowledge. Also, the Patriots Act, the CIA, the FBI, FISA warrants, which, of course, French supports FISA warrants. They utilize FISA warrants to spy on the president.
That alone should be disqualifying for a Republican. That's the sort of thing that we need to get out of the party.
Well, I shared it because his comments, even after President Trump had won, and after he had won his last election, he says, oh, FISA warrants, we've never spied on the American people. We have never spied on the American people. Okay, well, MLK differs. JFK would differ. Every American would differ. We've had authors that we spied on in Cuba and in different places that committed suicide because they could hear that we were spying on them. So this idea that we don't do that, of course we spy on the American people. And it's got to stop because these three-letter organizations have overgrown themselves. They feel that they can legislate and that they have authority when they do not. Their power, it comes directly from Congress, but Congress doesn't want to take the responsibility for it. It's just all one facade that you try to sell to the American people. When my own businesses in Arkansas were raided by the FBI because they were Tea Party members, the Obama administration raided them. So this idea that even sells and works in my district, I don't know why he would say that, other than he serves and still has security clearance because he served on the Security Council. Well, you can try to sell that to someone else. I mean, we have sayings for that down here, but I'm not going to go there. About
Go there.
tell me a lie, and I just don't believe in lying to the American people. And this idea that we don't, okay, whatever, sure, yeah, that only works in Hollywood to try to tell that lie.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the MAGA base needs to realize that local elections matter so much and congressional elections matter so much, because this really is more, it is about a lot more than Trump. And we need to sweep these old Republicans, the uniparty types, out of power, or we're just going to have the same shit. I want to bring up what Sea Striker said. We need to get rid of the Patriot Act. It really seems like once these things are enacted, once the government grabs power, there's no getting rid of it ever. So are we just stuck with this for life?
No, I think we get rid of it. And I think that we can even move where the TSA is more like clear. So I think you can do a Delta clear situation. I really like that. Not saying that we necessarily go all the way with the private sector on that, but I think the private sector can provide everything that we need. And then we just do body scans and you walk through. And then you have a clear system and that checks us where we're at. The implementation of the Patriot Act, this whole, you got to have a special driver's license, a real ID. That was supposed to be done in 2005. And it's 2025. So, nothing like being 20 years later. And that's kind of.
I love that government effort.
Yeah. That's public sector versus private sector, right? Private sector is going to win out every time. And I've even offered that. Why can't we just have private security for our airports? Why does it have to be the TSA? I don't think that. Am I thankful that they're there? Yes, I think they probably have stopped quite a bit of things. But I also think the attitude can be better. I'm not a criminal. I've never been a criminal. You can look at me and that, or if you can't look at me, you can at least listen to me and know that, hey, I'm not going to do anything to this country by far. But, I think the Patriot Act's just got to go. We should have never done it to begin with. And there's a multiple different levels of the Republican Party over the last 100 years. You had the progressive era, you had the Reagan years, which is what I want back. And then you had the Bush years, which were the neocons. And the neocons, they have already lost power. They still can. The problem is they control the state parties. So that's the problem in Arkansas. And, some of the folks that are in my party in Arkansas, they were Bill Clinton supporters. They got Bill Clinton to the White House twice. So those are some of the folks I'm running against. I mean, if you really want to know my race, my French Hill's former campaign manager is now the director of the Republican Party. And of course, they share all these corny little things and they think they're cool, and that's fine. But, look, Frenchie's got the swagger of I'm not even going to go there, but
go there.
Look, he's just a corny guy.
The crypt keeper.
So he's a banker, so he's corny. So if you've ever had to go borrow money from a banker, you kind of pretty well know where I'm going there. Band director, banker kind of style guy, corny as can be. Is on National French Fry Day, he takes a little picture with some French fries.
Oh, no.
That type of rhetoric. And, those types of people, it might not play well, or people might not think that matters, but I'll tell you why it matters. When you're in the room with CEOs and you're in the room with folks that want to invest in your state, a little bit of swagger goes a long way. A little bit of communication and down home goes a long way. It's worked for me all my life. I went from just working regular old consulting to I'm at the White House 3 times by private invitation, talking about healthcare and different things. And I've not changed. I'm the same person that I was then. Nothing is different about me. And it works. And I don't know if it's a Southern drawl or what it is, but I try to be honest and I try not to be hypocritical. And I try to think of everybody in a spectrum when I think of politics. And, he doesn't do that. So it's completely different. But
are you saying you're the swagger candidate?
Well, compared to him, yes. Now, am I the most swagger candidate in the country? Probably not. But
please, compared to him, the crypt keeper is swaggy.
Well, he's kind of the crypt keeper. He's the crypto keeper. I will say that. But, I don't know, man. I'm looking at the voters and I'm like, hey, you can either choose this guy or you can choose me. And I think that so far they're like, hey, we would kind of like to have somebody new. And it's funny when the boomers are even interested in it. The boomers are like, hey, I think we don't need to elect anybody of our age anymore. We've done enough damage. And I'm like, I'm glad you're starting to realize that. I'm glad you're starting to notice that the boomer generation is the one that tanked us in 2008. It's greed. And unfortunately, they got a lot of it. A lot of the great Ponzi schemes happen from the boomers. So we've got to change. We've got to modulate. And I think we're headed in the right direction, man. Yeah, we've had 3 levels of Republican Party, and I think we're trying to get back into the one that puts the American family first. That's where I'm hoping we're going towards that. We got to get new folks in.
I'm a big believer in what George Carlin said. It's a big club and you ain't in it. And I feel like it's so important to vote out the big club.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is what I tell people in Arkansas, if we can get one person like myself, if I can get in there, then we start changing up who our senator is. Then we start getting other good elected congressmen in the state. I would like to see some female representation for our state. We only have a governor and we have a lieutenant governor, but no federal delegation. I think the last time we had a female that represented the state of Arkansas was back in, it was before Bozeman was elected senator, which would have been somewhere around 2009, 2010 area. The Republican women in my state are the party. They're strong, and I'd like to see that. I would love to have a congresswoman beside me to where we can make some of these recommendations. It's kind of hard for me to go up and legislate on certain things because only the left and certain folks in the middle, unfortunately, in this younger generation, they won't take me serious because I'm not a female speaking on some of these issues. So I think it'd be good. I think it'd be good to have representation across the board in our state. And to be honest with you, I don't want to serve with those other guys. I don't. I mean, the odds of us having lunch together is probably pretty slim. I'm going to probably be hanging out with other folks, getting what Arkansas needs.
Yeah, I feel like you're doing a good job if they're hating on you.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, they're not very happy with me, but that's fine. I think if you're effective at this in life, you're going to have half the world that hates you and half the world that loves you. But if you're wanting 100%, you're not going to be very effective.
I think you need, if you end up running for something in the future governor, you need like a hot chick as your running mate. It could be the swag ticket. Hot chick with a gun.
Yeah, I'll probably have that on loop that I said swag. That'll probably be on the loop.
No, I'm for it though. When you're up against, the Old Man River.
Texas. I have to compete with Texas for business and Florida for business and a lot of other places. So I have to have a little bit more swag than they do. I have to have a little bit more confidence.
More than Texas. I mean, that's a high bar, dude.
Hey, I employ the most people on the planet. I can go in with as much swagger as possible. Between Walmart, JB Hunt, Tyson, Sam's Club, all those places. Yes,
those are all Arkansas businesses?
Those are Arkansas corporations.
I did not know that.
Most people on the planet. And I am the only state that has a department store, which is Dillard's, that actually performs every quarter better. Most Macy's and all those other ones are going under. Dillard's standing strong. I'm proud of my businesses here in Arkansas. So yeah, I can walk into anywhere and be extremely proud and confident when I walk in and say that we're the place that you need to open your business. A lot of people are fleeing Delaware and they're going to Texas. Well, hey, before you get there, you got to go through Arkansas from Delaware. Stop on here and let's you can stop here in Little Rock and you can move your headquarters here. And that's
all right. You've convinced me to visit Arkansas.
You need to come to the 2nd District. Beautiful mountains. People don't realize how beautiful our mountains are. We try to keep it secret. I think that was kind of the message. If we don't tell people, they won't move here. That's kind of what they wanted to do. We've controlled our housing market that way. But Arkansas is a beautiful place. It's a lot of fun, good people, good, kind folks. And I've always been proud to be from Arkansas.
Oh, I like that. Okay, I'm gonna visit at some point. So what are the dates coming up for your election? When do people go to vote?
So March the 3rd is our primary. So I'll tell you what they've done since I've.
Oh, you got a long ass time. You're starting early.
It was supposed to be in May, but ever since I've launched this thing, we went from $15,000 to a $30,000 filing fee, and they moved the primary from May to March. So. If you want to do this thing right, you're running against somebody that's one of the most powerful people in Washington. You got to do it right. So yeah, I will run for almost a whole year before we get to the primary. But the primary is going to be May the 3rd. March the 3rd, and we'll start early voting about 14 days prior. Early voting will be in whichever county you reside in because we do full county elections now. They haven't determined how they're going to do the elections. There's the Secretary of State has got some issues with that, of voting machines, paper ballots, no paper ballots. how they're going to handle that. So I don't know how we're going to vote yet. But at the moment I know, if it's paper ballots, I'm going to go into full detail. So there's no hanging chads or anything of that nature when it comes down to that, because we want that to be done effectively. But what voting apparatus we're going to use, I don't know. And it could be per county. So I'm not sure yet. We got to figure that out.
No voting by mail and 4 a.m. ballot drops.
No, definitely in our primaries, most people don't do that. Now, they do a lot of absentee ballots. A lot of people do those for the older people, which we've never had any issue with that. In Arkansas, I've always been very, very confident in our elections in Arkansas. I'm proud of them. But there was something with the voting machines. They were decertified. So obviously it wasn't great, but I never had any issue or problem when I've ran candidates or whatnot. So I don't know. I didn't think it was a problem, but I guess they are. So they're working on that. And I think they're trying to move towards a full paper ballot. That's what the president wants. And you know what? I tell everybody, I have full faith in it. I have faith in the American people, and I have faith in Arkansans. But what I want out of this is March is usually our lowest turnout, and I want to blow that out of the water. I want the most people showing up, even if you don't like me, even if you hate me, I want you to go vote, because there's been a lot of people that have died to keep that. And there's been a lot of people that have had to fight for that. And it hurts me when I see people don't vote for whatever reason it may be. We are given a great gift, and we need to exercise it every election.
Yes, there are a lot of people on the right, I think, who only show up every 4 years. Like, we really need to approach every year like it's an election year.
Yeah, and what ends up happening is, so elections really...
Democrats do.
Yeah, and the thing is, elections in Arkansas actually happen in the primary because, I'll have a Democrat opponent, but there's no chance of him winning, there's only one male that's said so far, but whoever runs against me, they're not going to win. So if you don't change your leadership in May or during the primary, then you're going to get the same folks. And that's sad to see. I don't like that. And hey, I stood up against them and I said, y'all gerrymandered this district, and that's not fair. If Republicans do the right thing, then this district should have been drawn correctly. I don't like the way the district was drawn. As Republicans, and I agree with that, midterms are the most important because, like in my state, let's say I'll lose the midterm, but I wanted to run as an independent. Well, I can't. I had to already decide that before the primary came to be. So there's no situation to where, like this situation in New York, you can't do that in Arkansas. You had to already decide you were going to be an independent, have all of your signatures, which is 10% of the whole electorate, which is more than what will vote in the primary, to even be on the ballot. So we basically eliminated there ever being a third-party candidate in Arkansas. And we raised our filing fees to $30,000 to run for Senate. For the House of Representatives. And most of the time it's like $1,500 or $500 around the country. So Arkansas does some shady stuff too as a Republican Party. It's not so great. That's okay.
So what are the next steps for you? Are you working on getting on the ballot?
Yeah. So we're raising money now. So we'll be on the ballot. And then from the ballot, which we will do that in November, it's about a 90-day race. And they wanted to lower that to 30-day race, but we thankfully were able to keep it to 90 days. So in November, I will officially file. My name will be on the ballot. And then from there, I'm campaigning now. This is my life until March. The ceremony of actually being on the ballot will be in November. And then from there, we just keep on campaigning until March the 3rd. And I will be campaigning that morning. We will be doing our job like we're supposed to. But right now I've got another event that will be, or actually another interview with Conduit News, which is an Arkansas news organization that I'm very proud of. That is on August the 18th, I believe. And then we are trying to get it set up to where the 19th in Little Rock, we will do our first town hall because French Hill will not do one in person. So he will only do a telephone town hall or a Zoom.
Are you kidding me? What, from hospice?
None of my Arkansas delegation will meet the people in person.
It's unbelievable that these people are allowed to stay in power and get away with that.
They're intimidated by the left, and I'm not. So, this is the thing. The left has every right to tell me how they feel. And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to listen to it. And, if it gets to where it's a full screaming match, I'm going to say, okay, well, then you didn't come here in good faith to ever have a conversation with me. You just wanted to holler and scream, and that's fine. And you've got that out of you now. Now I got to move on to the next person if that's what happens. But the problem is I am a Republican, so it makes me not weak. But what I hate to see is that most of these folks are weak. They don't know how to handle the American people. It's like the American people have a plague and they don't want to be around them. That, oh, I have to go around the rabble, the people. That's gross. I don't want to do that. That's just what it feels like. It comes across for me. And I give kudos to the Republicans that have, but the ones that I've seen that have been out there are the newly elected. Mr. McCormick over in Georgia, he went and he stood in front of his, and everybody was like, oh, they're tearing him up. They're tearing him up. Well, that's okay. That's what we're here to do. There's two things that I feel like an elected official should be forced to do to hold the office. You've got to debate every opponent, and you have to do town halls, and you've got to go talk to your people. I mean, it's the minimum, the bare minimum of the job. That is your.
I would kind of love to see every Republican running for office have to go toe to toe with Antifa and see how they hold up, because I think the two biggest problems in the Republican Party are corruption and weakness.
Yeah.
So many of them, they're so afraid of being called these ridiculous words that the left comes up with. You're a fascist, Nazi, that they will just cower to them.
The left love to call every Republican a racist, which I find absolutely comical. My parents adopted my brother when we were around 10 years old. My brother's African American. Okay. My family have been abolitionists from the very beginning. And it's just like water on a duck back for me. Call me racist if you want to. I'm not. There's nothing about me that is racist. There's nothing about me that judges anybody that's an adult. The only time that I have ever put anything in when I talk about social politics is I'm not going to allow children to transition. We're just not going to do that. You can do it as an adult. I don't have a problem with it. I don't care what people do as an adult. Maybe I'm a libertarian on that. I don't know. That's not my household. I worry about the rug in front of my household. I don't worry about anybody else's. But you're not going to transition a child. That's just not going to happen. It causes irreparable harm to them. And I think it's child abuse. So we're not going to do that. Now, if you want to start therapy, that's fine. But we're not going to start blockers, puberty blockers, and you're not going to go through full surgeries. It's insane to me that that's already happened in Arkansas. That was something that they were doing in Arkansas, and we had to put a stop to it, but you're just not going to do that. Now, outside of that, if you want to have that conversation, if you want to let your child, dress up of the opposite gender, that's no harm to me. They can do that, but you're not going to go have medical intervention, and we're not going to pay for that medical intervention to do that, because I feel like it's harmful. But outside of that, when it comes down to social issues, do as you wish. You've got the freedom and the liberty to do so. That flag waves for you just like it waves for me. And I think that if we get away from that as a party, so when the Democrats go into their whole little spells and we just say, yeah, that doesn't bother me, I don't care, it doesn't really make any hill of beans to me, then they lose all the fundraising from it. They lose all of the wind out of their sails. But we don't. We beat that drum. And there's some Republicans that feel that way, and it does bother them. And that's fine for them to feel that way. I just don't think they deserve to be in Washington. I think they need to stick to state politics where states can determine that. But I don't think that's a place in Washington for that. Because Washington,
it's unbelievable how in 2020 people forget so quickly how in 2020 in the Democrat primary presidential debates, they were literally asked, what will you do to make puberty blockers for children more affordable? Yeah. And they all gave their answers. Like, we're not living in friggin' crazy town. Like, this is something normal.
Yeah. And they're focused
and then a lot of Republicans cowered to it at the time. Thankfully, now I think most are on the same page. But a lot of them were like, oh, well, children can transition, blah, blah, blah. Like, they dance around it. And so few would say, are you insane?
Yeah, well, the thing about it is common sense is common sense. And you don't have to go to Harvard to understand that. You don't have to be,
make sense common again.
Yeah, you didn't have to, you don't have to be a Yale graduate to understand these things. And it seems like maybe some of those degrees get in the way of knowledge. And, look, like I said, I have no problem with people that choose to do that. That's between them, God, and the fence post. It has nothing to do with me. And those are tax-paying citizens. And as long as they're not breaking the law and they're not hurting somebody else, it doesn't bother me, because I don't have time for that. Because I feel like focusing on those types of things are for a nation that is a lot better off than we are right now.
Yup.
Finance, safety, and security. And if that's all we have in the country to complain about, then we must be doing pretty dang well, right?
Yeah.
Because I just don't think that's a major issue. Now, on the sports front, I do support that, if you just decided to transition at 8 or 17 years old and you're competing for a state scholarship, you can do that, but your ranking doesn't keep that female, natural born female, from receiving her scholarship. And this changes the lives of quite a bit of families. So there are a lot of kids out there that they are first time going to college, and they get that through physical prowess, through either their scholarship or whatever it may be. But in this case, it's going to be a physical prowess because they're going to be playing a sport, and that's not fair to them. That would have been their opportunity out. That would have been the way for them to, grab that rung and climb out of the hole, right? And that's not fair. So I do support that. I don't think you should be able to compete in sports, or you can compete, but you don't get the scholarship, right? So if if it's weightlifting and you pick up 400 pounds and the record's 200, well, your record doesn't count. You did it, and you technically, I guess,
Good
won.
for you. Here's a cookie.
But you don't get the scholarship, and you're not able, the next second place wins, I guess, is what I'm getting at in that situation.
It's unbelievable it's unbelievable that some of these things are even up for discussion.
Well, I agree. And the only reason that I find it troubling is because some of these, I have 6 little girl cousins, and all of them play sports. And my oldest, I would really hate to know that she is playing softball and she gets beat out because, or basketball or track. She's going into the 7th grade. So she's going to be competing in track this year. And the fact that she would get, she would be beat, she couldn't win, that would break my heart, because she's, she works her tail off. And that's hard for me. And I think that is for any parent or anybody that has relatives that are young or that compete in sports. It would be really hard and gut wrenching to see that. So yeah, it just goes down to common sense again. That's not fair. And this has monetary value to it, which affects multiple generations moving forward. So no, you can't do that, is the way I look at it. But I think that what has happened is we've tried to conflate politics into being such a big thing and in everyday life, and it shouldn't be. I'm afraid to say I don't know how old you are, but I will say this: I grew up in the '90s, and we very rarely ever talked politics. We very rarely
as 22.
Well, I am 31, about to be 32, so I've got 10 years on you. But I wish you could have grown up and
I'm a pathological liar about my age, I should mention.
Well, I wish you could have grown up in the years that I did, because the world was great. I mean, I think I had it the best it's ever been, from media being completely designed for me. We had Nickelodeon, and we had Cartoon Network, and we had Disney Channel. We had all this stuff. I grew up in the golden era of all of that. And, as a kid, I never focused on.
What was your favorite Nickelodeon show as a kid?
Fairly Odd Parents probably was probably my favorite. Yeah, I liked Fairly Odd.
I was an Are You Afraid of the Dark kid.
That one was good too. So, that came out in the afternoons. But yeah, I liked it. Or Slime Time, when Slime Time was on.
Slime Time. That's right.
Yeah, I would watch that. But Fairly Odd Parents was good. I actually remember watching the very first SpongeBob episode. And that's how old I feel now, knowing that it's still going. But that was a funny thing when my little cousins, I guess it's on Netflix now, and they were talking about it, and they were like, "Oh, there's a new show out, and it's called SpongeBob." And I was like, "That's not new. That came out a long, long time ago." But yeah, I just wish that kids still had that. I go with them down the toy aisle, and I'm like, "What is this? Why are they making toys like this?" They'd rather play with slime or watch other kids play with toys on YouTube or whatnot. And it's like, what happened to your imagination?
It's crazy. I was in a clothing store with my friend's daughter, who's a young teenager, and we had to walk through the kids section. All rainbows, trans stuff, trans kids, only in the children's section. It's insane. I think a lot of people don't realize quite the level of indoctrination that's happening, because even in red states, every friend of mine that has kids, they're dealing with this at school, with some asshole teacher telling them, "Oh, maybe you're really a boy," or telling the boys, "Maybe you're really a girl." It's insane that we would even entertain this for a moment.
That's why I tell people it's very important, like you said, when you're talking about local politics, the school board is probably the most important position in this country. I am probably one of the only Republicans that really truly believes that education is the lifeblood of America. And I do feel that way. Because if you have a very educated populace and they understand history and they know how things work and they know how things operate and they know true history, not some made up nonsense, but they know how things actually operate, you've got a better society. I can tell you that 3 of those girls, they can't read a clock because they didn't find like that was important anymore because everything's digital.
Mm-hmm.
I have a smartphone or a watch. I was like, okay, well, and I thought, for me, I'm like, okay, what happens when you go to London and you look up at Big Ben, you can't read the clock? Like that's a big deal. They didn't teach them how to count money, change, cash, cursive. Like
they don't want them knowing that. That's how they become Democrats.
Yeah. But these are common sense things that we learned, that our grandparents learned, that got us satellites in space and air travel and, all this kind of stuff. A lot of that came from folks that only got a 6th grade education or a 9th grade education, and then they continued out. They became engineers that now we give degrees from, but they just figured out how things worked. The mind of the human is extremely important to me to nurture and to grow. And the fact that we abandoned that in the 90s when we were taking, we were in the 90s, Republicans won everything. In 1994, the year I was born, was the greatest Republican revolution, right? We won everything except the White House because it wasn't up at that point. But, we failed education because we said that's localized and we don't need to focus on that because parents have that under control. Well, now parents have to work 60 hours a week. So they're not able to focus on their children. And also the way that the curriculum is designed now, these parents, myself, I don't know the new math, right? And when they told me it was new math, I said, new math? Math doesn't change. Math is math. 2 + 2 is 4. That's not going to change. Well, there is a new math, and it's
they're teaching kids 2 + 2 = racism.
Right. Well, and it's completely different. And that also means that now the parent's completely disconnected and not able to help their children. Because I've always had a philosophy that, you are educated at school, but your knowledge comes from home, and knowledge is what you take forward. So schools teach whatever is the secular part of it, and then you come home and you take that adaptation and say, well, we believe this or we don't believe that. Right. And you do that in the household. And that's where knowledge comes from. That's what my family did. And that's why I think I exceeded against some of my peers, was because I was grounded firmly in what we believed. But I didn't get that from school. I got that from home. And that's another part of it, is there's a lot of input that has to happen at home, not just, at the schoolhouse. But, we got to get back to just normal common sense education. And also, I think it's really, really important that we move towards vocational training in this country, because there's nothing wrong with it. And I grew up in a generation that if you were my teachers were disingenuous. They said, oh, well, if you're a welder or you're a truck driver or you're that, this, that, and the other one, my dad was making 3 times what she was as a teacher. But if your lot in life is to have a great family, provide for your family. I have a buddy of mine that owns an AC company, and he has always made more money than I did. He owns his own AC company. It's in rural Arkansas, and he has to turn business away. So it's very important that we focus on what this country needs across the board and say, hey, VOTEC is available. It doesn't always have to be from an Ivy League university, because I'm going to tell you, I know a lot of folks that went to very high dollar universities, and their knowledge, very slim, very, very slim.
Mm-hmm. I think what C. Striker said here is such a good point. Republicans have abandoned and ignored culture and education for decades. Now they have to play catch up. It's so true. It's kind of analogous to what I was saying earlier about what they've done in New York, is that New York used to be a very bipartisan city and state, and then they just gave up at a certain point. The same thing has happened in culture. The same thing has happened in education. So I really think now getting a victory or two in the election, it's not the time to get complacent when we're already having to play catch up to such an extent.
Right. I want my kids to be the smartest in the country. I want my kids to not only be the smartest in the country in Arkansas, I want all Americans to be the smartest children in the world. I think that we are not that far behind. I think that a lot of what we look at when we look at the global scale, they only take the cream of the crop, and that's who they test, and then that's who they report. Okay. But in America, every child gets an education. And we still, in today's time, that's not everywhere around the world. Not every country does that. I think it's very important that we focus on education. Should just be reading, writing, arithmetic, history, and sciences, not political science, not, not religious things. Just stick straight to what is important, which is the secular part of things. Leave all the other out, and then the family takes care of the rest of that at home. And I think that's very, very important to do. As a Baptist, it would be really hard for me if, they were teaching Catholicism, or if they were teaching the Methodist way or Episcopalian or whatever it may be, because every pulpit's a little bit different. Even in my own belief, there's different sects of Baptists. There's Southern Baptists, there's missionary Baptists, there's all these things. So what we need to do is, yes, we are, in my opinion, and I think that this is backed up through, I think it's backed up through history. Yes, we are a Christian nation. That is the core belief that we are a Western society. And I think that's the overarching how we have bound our laws and the way that we are. But that doesn't mean that in the classroom, you have to force that down the child's throat either, because, they're going to come home, they're going to tell me something, saying, well, we don't believe that religiously, right? Well, that's not our religion. That's the teacher's religion, or that's whatever that may be. So I think there's always a very good understanding. So, like I went to, a school, always went to public school, went to a public university. We always prayed before football games, even at, in college and everything. We always prayed before that. I don't see there's an issue or problem. I have no problem with prayer. But, in a public school, if you're starting to read scripture or different things like that, the interpretation of scripture and things, I can see where that causes an issue and a problem. And if we open it up for the Christian side, we have to open it up for everyone else. And I think the best thing about that is I do believe in a separation of church and state when it comes down to those types of things. Prayer, I'm fine with. I don't see that there's a problem with that. And I think that localized, that's where you handle that. It's not something that I need to do in Washington. I think that's what we need to do. That's why your school board is so important, that they protect that in your region. And that's the way that it is. And then if we actually adhere to that and you elect the right people to your school board and whatnot, then what happens is, if you don't like that place, then guess what? Everybody's going to move out. That's a part of also capitalism. If a business doesn't pay well and it's really crappy, then no one's going to work there. They're going to go work at the competition. So it happens to communities too. If it's a really crappy place, then you're going to leave New York City and you're going to move to Miami, Florida, or wherever it may be, or Arkansas.
Oh, Miami is like little New York.
Hey, we carried that.
Worse.
We've carried that county with. We carried it with the president and DeSantis. So it's, it's getting better. But, I believe we have a big country. I believe we have a lot of different beliefs. I just think the Republican side is better. But I think that the only way that we prove that is if red states start winning. And, I got a lot of people on Medicaid, right? I have a lot of people that are, used to, when I graduated high school, we were 21st in education. Now we're 44th, and Mississippi is 16th. And that's driving me up a wall that Mississippi is 16th in education and Arkansas is 44th. I mean, it just blows my mind that Mississippi is just blowing the water off of everybody. And Mississippi across the board is doing better than Arkansas. And I cannot stomach that. I cannot do that. So, it should be a fire in your belly, and that's kind of where I feel like in the South, we are really big with football, right? We're big SEC. We're SEC folks, right? We really care about our football teams. We don't seem to put that much pride into our states. If we put as much pride as we did in the state of Arkansas as we do in the Razorbacks, man, we'd be number one. And that's where, I'd like to see that. I've always picked that I want to inject a little bit of Texan in Arkansans so that we have that same pride and strength that a Texan does in Texan. I want that for Arkansas. But I think every state should feel that way, because we are 50 sovereign states. And I think that if we start focusing on that and getting a little competitive, then America wins in that situation. I like competition.
I wanted to ask you, speaking of education, how do we get the indoctrination out of the schools? Because I was just talking to a friend of mine. She lives in a red state, and her kindergartner is being taught about pronouns at school. So she had to go complain to the school. How do we get this bullshit out of the public schools?
So for a state like mine, it's pretty simple. Everybody's intimidated by the teachers' unions, and I don't understand why. Mm-hmm. So I've talked to a lot. I'm friends with all of my former teachers, pretty much all of them, and I've asked them about it. And they said, well, we're only a part of a teachers' union because they provide us with insurance if for some reason, something happens and a student says something and they need an insurance, a lawyer. Kind of like if you have if you've got a firearm, you can get insurance to cover you just in case if you ever have to use it, type thing. So every professional has a type of insurance, a group that they're a part of to kind of give them a lawyer or whatever they may need. Not all the time is it necessary. Sometimes it can just be a fact that two kids were in a fight and the teacher had to push the student off of the other student, or the student pushed them or hit them. But anyway, to get back to the point, I said, well, why are y'all not voting members? And they said, well, because they're too liberal and we really don't want to be a part of it, but we've got, we have to have that insurance because the school doesn't provide it. And most schools don't. So that's why you're part of the teachers union. So why won't y'all run and do something about it? She goes, well, I don't know. I've never thought about doing it. I said, well, it's very important that y'all do that because every elected official is so intimidated by the teachers union. And I met with the teachers union. I talked to them in Arkansas. And the only
How did that go?
Well, I didn't on this election cycle, but I've met with them in the past. But when I did, the only thing they could talk about was racism. They never once mentioned a child. They never once mentioned a child, how I can perform, make anything better. They talked about their retirement. They talked about their health insurance, and they talked about racism and how bad it was in our country. And I said, well, not one time have you.
Let me guess, they were white liberal women.
They were. And I said, not one time have you ever mentioned a child to me. You never talked to me about a child and how we provide better health care. Better education for them. You never talked about the fact that at the time, it was during COVID, and we had a major crisis in our state because Arkansas is rural, so there's not a lot of internet access. And even if there was, there's quite a bit of families in Arkansas that can't afford internet. So I had contacted Verizon because that's one of our biggest carriers in Arkansas for my school district, at least where I live. And I said, look, I need some more of these little hotspots. You only gave me 5, and I need like 500. Like, what do we can't, our kids are losing out in this situation. And it was my school district where I went to school. And so I was talking to them about that. I said, you're not even focused on that. And their idea was that kids could go get on the school bus. They could all use one little hotspot router on the school bus, and they turn the air conditioner on. I said, it'd be nice if we had a building where we could house them and feed them lunch. And then, they get out about 3:00. We have a bell. And they were like, yeah, that would be nice. But there's some community centers. I said, no, the schoolhouse that we pay for. If you're going to load them all up on a school bus in a park, but we can't keep them in the classroom because y'all are afraid you're going to have COVID, how does that make any sense? And that's when I knew, okay, public education is lost. We've got to figure out how to fix this. And it's not a problem. So as a Republican, I've never understood the philosophy of burn it all to the ground or let it fail or run away. That's just never been our philosophy. We've always been able to fix things. We're the fixers. And, just with that issue, it just seems like Republicans would rather just let it die and move on. But I just don't think that's the right thing for us to do. I think what it does is it creates the situation that you had in those bigger cities in the Northeast, where you have these school systems that are just absolutely pitiful, deplorable to say the least, and not even fit for humans to be in the building because of mold and whatnot. And I just don't think that's what we need to do for our country. But if we fix these things, we inject patriotism every day in the classroom by saying the pledge and by also giving some of these students, maybe that's the failure. Maybe they've never grown up in a community like mine. Some of my classmates, that was the meal they got. And that was the safe environment that they had. That was a place where it was clean and it wasn't filthy, and they didn't have someone that had been on drugs, or whatever that was trying to break into their house. I mean, some of these kids need that as an escape. So this idea that we take that away, I just don't think that's a good idea. I think there's another side to it, is what I'm getting at. As much as I'm angry with the liberal nonsense that goes along with it, at the end of the day, only thing I care about are children and families. And by taking that away, there's some kids out there that we have, they got public education, they did well, they went on to college, and they became some of the greatest minds in this country. And to just kind of skip over that and say that's not important, I don't think that's the American dream to me. Or the American dream to me are those that don't have much and achieve so much because of that drive in the belly that they wanted that and they wanted a better life. And I think to just kind of skip over public education and act like it's a dead, antiquated thing that we don't need to do anymore, I don't think that's a right move. Now, I'm the only Republican that probably feels that way, and that's okay.
No, I agree with you.
But I think that it's a big misstep to not treat our children with the respect that they should have and give them the best that the world can offer them, because they're our next generation. And
I think it was very shocking to people in 2020 to look over their kids on their Zoom schooling and see the shit that they were being taught.
I mean, there was nudity. There was many.
Yeah, you'll see these school board meetings
Yeah.
where they'll cut the parent's microphone because they're reading the book that's being taught to their kids, and it's too inappropriate for adults to hear. So let's read it to your 10-year-olds.
Yeah, and everybody's trying to.
Crazy.
So I like I said, I don't believe in censorship, but I do believe that a lot of that nonsense doesn't belong in a public school.
No.
Now, in a public library, I'm going to be honest with you. I was on TikTok the other day, and there was a liberal that was making a joke about you never see Republicans in public libraries, and I couldn't help it. My staff don't know about this, so they're probably going to get on to me about this, but it was on my personal page, so whatever. But I told them, because we buy our books. We support the author. We don't need a public library. I don't need a library card to go rent a book. I buy my books. I support the author. I support the industry. That's why you don't see Republicans at libraries. But, things that happen at a public library, so be it. But in a public school, no. And they're taking, like, my favorite book's To Kill a Mockingbird, and they take that off the shelves and they try to censor that. I'm like, no. You need to teach about Atticus Finch.
Yeah.
Atticus Finch reminds me of my grandfather. My grandfather's, his best friends growing up were African-American. And it was in a time that segregation was still alive and well in Arkansas and still alive and well in the South. My great-grandfather, the same way. So it's very important to teach about Atticus Finch. And then it took both sides, two races, to fix and right a wrong. Same thing with the Civil War. It's got to be taught properly. My family were from Arkansas, but they left Arkansas to fight for the Union. It's because they believed in abolition. They believed that this was wrong and they didn't want to do this anymore, and that it wasn't right for America. So I think that it's very important we focus on this, but we also saw what our children live in. And the fact that we could ever turn our back on them, it breaks my heart that some people don't take that in consideration. And, one of the things that liberals like to throw in our face is, well, you're only pro-life at birth. Well, no, pro-life for me goes way past birth. It's into, how the elderly are treated. It's how children are treated. I don't believe that I'm forcing someone, and that's not my MO to force someone to just have a child. That's not it at all. I truly care for every American in this country. And, if a child needs food, it blows my mind that public schools, at least in my state, if they offer free and reduced lunch at all, they have to throw that food away. They can't give it to anybody because of the way the contracts. Now the governor's trying to change that to where they can give the food away to kids, but we throw away, I think it's 10 tons a year of food that no one eats or consumes, but those kids could be sent home with it. And, it takes a village, and I think that's okay. I think it's okay.
Well, thank you. I don't want to keep you all night. So where can people support when you got your town hall coming up? What is that next month?
Yeah. So as soon as we get that ironed out with the college, I'll have that ready to go. I will have it public. We will do a live, so people will be able to answer questions. My campaign staff will be able to do basically what you've been doing here. They'll ask me those questions. And then, of course,
you got to film that. I want to see some liberal college kids' heads exploding.
Yeah, there's a potential. There's a potential for sure. But I'm excited. I think my people need it. We've not done a town hall. I don't know when French has done a town hall as an in-person town hall. He does telephone town halls. But when you're in recess, I don't know why you need to do a telephone town hall. You should be able to do that in person.
If you're hiding in the basement.
Yeah. It is what it is, but I'm not intimidated by the people. I don't feel like the American people have the plague. So I'm excited. I love it. It's fun for me. I love to have conversation, and I love to hear other people's opinions. Sometimes I'm like, hey, I didn't think of it that way. Doesn't mean I still support it, but I didn't think of it at that angle. Thank you. That'll help me prepare for the debate. I didn't think of it from that way, but I appreciate it. I love these types of interviews. They're so much better than being on, traditional media will give you 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Oh yeah, they're dying out, and they're starting to realize it too. I think that's why they're bitching and moaning about like Colbert losing $40 million a year and being canceled.
Yeah. It's one of those things that that's where you go to spin. So it's just the spin chamber, and nobody really cares about that anymore. At least not our generation. I think the older generation does, but our generation, they just want the truth. And I think it's really important that we get some millennial voices up there and Gen Z voices. And, Alpha is not old enough yet, but I think it's time that we take our country back from, these are
Alpha the one after Gen Z.
Yeah.
We've gotten that old. The new generation now.
Yeah, I went from being a millennial to now there's 2 generations underneath me, and I don't know how to contemplate that. I've always been the oldest one in the room, and now that's not the case. But
This is why I identify as 22.
yeah, well, I slipped up the other day. Someone asked me how old I was when we were in Pennsylvania working, and I said 23. And I said, "Ma'am, I'm lying to you. I don't know why that came out of my mouth. I'm 30." And but I don't know, man.
I just go with I haven't decided how old I am yet. I'll decide at some point. Give me a couple more birthdays.
Well, I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much. And where can people go support you?
Yeah, so you can go to McDowellforArkansas.com. Of course, I think you put my Facebook and my X and all of that on there. So I have started a new X. So when people look at that, they're probably like, "Oh, wow, he doesn't have that many followers." Well, I never did X or Twitter because it was always a liberal place that you never could get anything.
I was banned from there for years.
Yeah. So I never had any dealings with it. I always did Facebook and other things. So I've got quite a bit of following on Facebook. But everything we do on Facebook, I transition over to X. It's maybe a little bit different. But I have my Facebook. Yeah. So those are my links to those. I also have a TikTok that, I know a lot of people, probably Republicans, advocated that is shut down, but I like TikTok. I think it's very interesting. I think it's pretty cool. So we have a TikTok, and so far I will be releasing my second to the last bill that I plan on dropping in the hopper on the very first day I'm elected. So I've kind of done a series there explaining the bills. But yeah, give me a follow. I love to collaborate with people in the comments. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. If it's just something crazy, I just don't even respond. It's not.
Oh, I love crazy people. Those are the ones.
Well, if I had the time, I would, but I don't have the time for that. But if it's a genuine question, then yeah, of course, I'm always there to answer it and have communications. And I'll be on anybody's podcast.
That's awesome.
I've told everybody. I even talked to the Democratic Party of my state. I said, "Hey, I'm just telling you, there's another option out there. If you're not," this was before they were running someone else. I guess they're running someone now, but I was like, "Hey, let's talk. Maybe we have some common ground. Maybe there are some things that we can talk about. Maybe there's certain issues that you'll support me on." I'll talk to anybody, because the thing is, we all share this country. Yeah, I'm a Republican. I've been a Republican all my life, and I'm proud of it. And I'm not going to change my party just because maybe my party's going a different direction than I like. I think there has to be some of us that stay behind and fix it and repair it. And I think that's what we're doing now. As I think we're in a repairing era of the Republican Party, where we've grown the tent so large. But there's quite a bit of folks that now are a part of it that would never have been during the Bush era. So we've shaken the country club out, and we brought in the American hard worker, and I'm proud of that. And I hope we move forward with that. But yeah, man.
And like I was saying earlier, to anyone watching this, anyone in Arkansas, it is so important that we get rid of these lifelong corrupt career politicians just gripping to power from the grave. So support people like this. Support people who will actually do something for average Americans.
I agree, because let me tell you, I was a little boy from a trailer house, so I can tell you, I know normal America. I am an American.
You have kind of J.D. Vance vibes. I like it.
Everybody gives me that. I'm a little bit more conservative than JD.
Facial hair.
Yeah. Hey, if it works, we'll go with it. I like JD. I really haven't found any problems with him yet.
No, he's great.
Yeah, I would love to help the vice president, future president. I think that would be a wonderful, wonderful idea.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, dude. This has been amazing. Everybody, subscribe to me, do the stuff. Join his stuff, subscribe, give him the follows, do all the stuff. The links are below. I'll be back this week. Join my locals, become a channel member. We have and just like that, hate watch parties on Thursdays. That's what I needed to ask you about, Chase. God, how horrible is the Sex and the City reboot, right?
I haven't watched that. So I'll tell you this.
Can we get a bill against it? Because I'm against censorship, except in this case.
The thing about it is I can't watch what's her name.
Sarah Jessica Parker.
Well, I don't like her, but I also don't like the lady that ran for New York governor.
Cynthia Nixon.
Yeah, Cynthia Nixon's a little out there. So but yeah, it's just not for me. It's not my cup of tea on that one. I'm more of a Top Gear guy. I like Top Gear. I still watch all the old Top Gear reruns. I'm a really big gearhead.
What's Top Gear? Is that the?
It was a British. Y'all American people are going to get me on this one. They had an American version of Top Gear. It wasn't really good, but the British Top Gear, it's got Jeremy Clarkson, and then they moved the series over to Amazon. But
Is that the one that was like a reality show about shooting guns?
no. It's just they just drive cars and they do stupid stuff, and
Oh.
it's got a little British humor in there. But it's just they drive junk, like they take like even some old Range Rovers. They go through the jungle, and like it's an hour-long episode. Sometimes they're like 2 hour long, but they're just you gotta look it up. They're just hilarious to me. But I've always been a car guy. It's just something I've always loved. And they have all kinds. They have American vehicles on, and of course, different vehicles that we don't even get in this country because it wouldn't matter. We wouldn't have bought them. But they're just stupid, just stupid slapstick stuff. It's a good thing to have on in the background sometimes.
I think I was thinking of Top Shot. They had some
Top
reality
Shot is
show
good
about
too,
it.
but Top Gear is I like to watch Top Gear.
I'm a Survivor fan, so the host of it was on Survivor, and that's how I ended up randomly watching it.
Yeah, I've been watching reruns of Scandal here lately. Too.
I've never actually seen that.
Is it tied to? It's political light, but once you start something, I like to finish it. I had rewatched the West Wing. West Wing's fairly good, but I started watching Scandal again because I used to watch it when it came on a long time ago, and I never finished it. So I wanted to finish it, and I'm like, okay, now that I've worked in politics long enough, this is okay. Yeah, there's about 2% of politics in it. The rest of it's just a drama. But yeah, man,
I used to like those Aaron Sorkin shows, but as an adult watching them, they're just so cringy. Did you ever see The Newsroom?
Yeah. So
I'm addicted to the cringe.
I tell people to watch The West Wing because it'll get you introduced. Like it'll kind of give you an introduction to how government works a little bit. They're long, they're kind of boring sometimes, but I as much as I am a Republican, I do like Bartlett. I think that it was just kind of a fun little show. I mean, not anything that I want to imitate, but better than House of Cards by far.
I like the first couple seasons. They ruined it at the end. Last season
is when they ruined the show.
Why couldn't Kevin Spacey have just waited a bit to start molesting people?
Well, and then they came to find out that none of that, like all of that was, the guy said it didn't happen. They wasn't found guilty and all that. So I don't know anything about it. I can't speak on it to say what. I just read an article that they had not found him guilty. So I don't know what happened there. And he's been really
mad they ruined the show.
Yeah, well, they did. So they took the whole what was supposed to happen and they threw it in the trash. And they said that they literally wrote the last season in like 15 days, and it shows.
Oh, it shows.
Big feminist nonsense, and it was bad. It was awful. So they ruined it.
It's horrible when you're watching a show and then you get to the seasons that started in like 2020 when they start doing land acknowledgements and bashing Trump, and it gets super political. I'm like, that's about when I check out.
Yeah, and it's nice to be on this side of that, of the looking glass, because we're out of that. And it's so nice to say, okay, that was just a period, and now we've moved out of it, and we're not in that anymore. Because Hollywood's lost so much money. Disney is hemorrhaging cash on almost every movie they make, and they've just basically found out, hey, you know what? We need to stay away from politics. And I was glad that Jay Leno came out. I would love to see them bring Jay Leno back.
We didn't realize how good we had it with Jay Leno. He was underrated.
Yeah, he was really good. And yeah, he picked fun at the presidents, but he picked fun at every president. And it wasn't stupid, and it wasn't calling him a tyrant. And, I don't know how many times I've been called a dictator and a tyrant and a racist and a this and a that and a whatever. And that's what I say. Hyperbole loses its power over time. A true racist
These words have lost all meaning.
Right. A true racist is a horrible person, right? That means that you have hatred and want death on someone. And we've watered it down to where, a misunderstanding can be, now you're a staunch racist. And some of it is a misunderstanding. Some words that were taught to us when we were younger, you just, and I'm not talking about like the N-word or anything, but I'm just saying like parts of the map or whatnot. I mean, that's literally was what we were taught, but then now it seems racist because someone says it is, but no one else told the rest of the world. So, it's just one of those things that social politics, all of that kind of ideology politics, I just have no time for it because it's irrelevant.
It's only because the vast majority of Americans are not racist that being called these words has had such power for people on the left that people just immediately go, oh, I don't want to be called that. Let me just get on board with whatever crazy shit you're pushing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like all the new pronouns. I'm like, well, I only know 2, but now there's 26 and then 52 and 73. I'm like, man, y'all are square rooting. Is that what we're doing? There's cubing this. Like, how are we getting to these MZers, these ERZers. I don't know what all that means.
No, my answer is just straight up no. A friend of mine sent me the other day there's like, oh, you should apply to this thing. And I'm like, I wouldn't make it past the second question. The second question, what are your pronouns? I just write no. Not interested.
Staff, I can't roll my R's, so I can't speak Spanish. But I said, I can't say some of these people's pronouns. So I'm going to be I'm in trouble because I can't roll my R's. And some of these crazy things it sounds like E.T. mixed with Star Wars and Star Trek. And I can't get behind it.
And it's about as real as those things too.
Well, the crazy thing is some of these Ivy League universities that offer courses in this. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we're not paying $500 for that. Like, it's not going to happen. Well, anyway, man, I appreciate it. Anytime you want to do this,
so much.
If you want me on again, I'll do it again. But
I would love to.
I appreciate it, and I thank you all so much. I appreciate your listeners, and good luck. I'm glad to see this. This is the best thing for America, is to have people out and doing this. I mean, it's just great. So much better than being on the big networks.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, chat fam, for watching. I'll be back this week. Follow his stuff, follow my stuff, do all the stuff. I will see you soon.